Good afternoon. I'd like to call Planning Advisory Committee to order. I'd like to welcome our public members, Pam and Sam, for joining us again today. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of January 20, 2026. Any issues from any member? Seeing none, I'll say the minutes are approved as presented. First item on the agenda is Plan 25-011, Coors Worldwide, Inc., proposed amendments to land use bylaw, final report. Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the chair mentioned, the applicant is Coors Worldwide. They're located in Belnan, where the subject property is indicated. They're looking to amend the land use bylaw by increasing the maximum commercial floor area of the highway commercial HC zone from the current 930 square meters to 2,750 square meters. Again, this is just a satellite image of the subject property. Surrounding property uses include residential and agricultural uses. So there's currently a 771 square meter commercial building located on the subject lands, and the company is proposing a second 378 square meter commercial building, and they have an intention to just construct another building in the future. The current maximum commercial floor area of the highway commercial zone is 930 square meters. The zone does not have a policy to enable the applicant to apply for a development agreement for land uses beyond the current gross floor area. Therefore, the applicant is applying for the land use bylaw amendment to increase the maximum commercial floor area in the highway commercial zone. And the intent of the highway commercial zone is to provide for commercial uses which make extensive use of land, especially automobile-related uses that service the traveling public. The proposed gross floor area is consistent with the overall maximum floor area of the general commercial zone. The general commercial zone permits both commercial and residential uses on the same property, and it's not as intensive as the highway commercial use. So the intent of the general commercial zone is to provide areas within the community that are primarily retail and service business in character, which fit in primarily residential areas. There are 21 properties in East Hampton that are zoned highway commercial, and the proposed change would impact the gross floor area for each of these properties. So this is a site plan that was submitted with the application, and although the application is not site specific, it just shows right here where the proposed building is to be located. These are the 21 properties throughout the municipality which would be impacted by the proposed change. As I mentioned previously, we have the hardware stores in both Enfield and Shubenacadie, and there's an auto salvage sales place up in 9 Mile River, and then there's a few properties in Mount Uniacke. In order for Coors Worldwide to expand its existing business operations, an amendment to the official community plan is required. The highway commercial zone is intended as a land-intensive zone, and staff recommend that the maximum commercial floor area be increased to match the total maximum floor area of the general commercial zone, recognizing that the highway commercial zone is intended to be a more land-intensive zone than the general commercial zone. We've asked Economic and Business Development for their comments, and they support the increase in the gross floor area. And the amendment is appealable to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. We have advertised the public hearing for the application in the February 11th, and the next ad will go in the February 18th editions of the Chronicle Herald. And it's on the municipal website and social media, and just is the flow chart to show where we are here today. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council second reading and approve the land use by text amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie, for the report. Councilor Marion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to our staff. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question for you about a parcel that I believe is in District 6, and I can give you the PID for reference. It's 452-89139.
It's
This one,
this
yeah.
one right here in Milford, yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at that, would you say that that is one of the bigger HC zones?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, just looking at the overall size of the property, it is probably one of the bigger HC zones. It is also located on the 224, is it? Highway 224.
The sort of a back road. The
Yeah,
number
by
escapes
the
me, but
Heritage Baptist
yeah,
Church. Yeah.
that's right, right. So in just giving this a bit of thought on the weekend, I don't know if you can or want to bring it up, but if you look at where that's located, just going up over a hill, and there's some kind of a buffer of trees or a tree line. You have Runny Lane in back of that, and there's 7 houses that are kind of directly behind that HC zone. And I got thinking about it, and there's quite a nice tree line there. So it looks like on the minimum end it would be about 20 meters depth, and quite a bit more than that. At the deeper part of it. And it just got me thinking about things like, I guess one question is, am I right that the buffer is on the HC on if someone said, well, look, I'm going to go in, and of course this is the way the rule is right now, but if we wanted to go in and go right back on the tree line, and I know there's various options with fencing and so on, but am I right that you could have a minimum buffer of 1.5 meters? Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so the highway commercial zone and all the separated commercial zones do have general and vegetative buffer requirements. They could be a variety of things. It could be a fence, it could be maintaining the vegetation, it could be planting new vegetation, it could be a berm, or it could be a combination of all of those. And if they're gonna do a planted strip, it does say a minimum of 1.5 meter wide strip, that it would be a vegetative buffer, but it doesn't have to be that. It could
Yeah.
be a fence instead.
Yes. So I guess in looking at it, I know the rules are to some extent that's the way they are now, but I think the thing that's a bit different here is just going bigger with the building floor area, if I can call it that. And it looked to me like, in terms of scope, it might be, you could look at this and say big deal, but maybe 20%, if that that PID that I mentioned is roughly 3.3 acres, 13,638 square meters. The building area could be roughly 20% of that. And I guess my question is, that 20% could be, if it was sold or whatever someone wanted to do with it, that 20% of the area could be put right back up against the houses. Am I correct there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is a setback off that back, that would be a rear property line, and I can tell you what it is. It would be 12 meters, so they'd have to have the building located 12 meters from that back property line.
Okay.
But as you said, that's just the building itself. From a standpoint of clearing the lot, somebody could clear the lot, whether it's a small building or a larger building, all the way to the property lines, as long as they put in a buffer. So that could be a
Yes.
fenced buffer, but they could still clear it up to that property
Yeah,
line.
yep.
Yeah.
And that's all as of right, without a development. I agree, assuming, this goes through with the increase in area size of the building. It's all as of right as part of the HC zone.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Just
Warden
a,
Rolston.
just a question. Does this change in floor area? Are there any parking regulations around highway commercial? And this would allow larger lot coverage by larger buildings, and would there be any impact on parking regulations?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so whatever the use of the land is, it doesn't matter how big the building is, they still have to accommodate the parking stalls that they be required to park, still be required. So if the building was retail of some sort and they created a larger retail building, then they'd have to comply with the new parking requirements. So it doesn't matter the size of the building, they still have to comply with our parking requirements.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. We have a motion on the screen, councilors. Councilor Tingley.
Through the chair, I'll make the motion. Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give second reading and approve the application from Coors Worldwide, Inc. to amend the LUB by increasing the maximum commercial floor area of highway commercial HC zone to 2,750 meters squared.
So moved to second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Debbie. Next item on the agenda is Plan 23-00011 Cottage Country. Request for initial consideration to a development agreement. And Debbie, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The purpose of this application is to enter into a development agreement to permit 370 dwelling unit bare land condominium development with 10.19 hectares of multi-use development, and that's a mix of commercial, residential, live-work units. All condo units will be on an average of about 1 acre in size to accommodate on-site services, and the current emergency exit to Long Lake Road is proposed to be upgraded to a municipal road to allow for a second public road to service the new and current condo owners. All other condo roads are proposed to be constructed to municipal standards for private roads. Together with the existing cottage country development, there are proposed to be 771 bare land condominium units as part of the development for an approximate future population of 1,850 residents. As mentioned, the proposal is under a number company, but that's Cottage Country. The location of the properties are outlined here in red. The size of the property is 323 hectares, and in 2010, there was a development agreement approved for Villages 1 and 2, and that permitted 401 bare land condominium units, and to date, approximately 215 of the 401 dwelling units have been either constructed or are currently under construction. And just as of note, this green area here is open space lands owned by the municipality. This is a satellite image of the subject lands, and again, just for context, we have East Uniacke Road and Nature Drive. This is Village 1, Village 2, and then we have the current emergency access over to Long Lake. And the photo is just the entrance of Nature Drive into that emergency access onto Mill Cove Road. This is a site plan for the proposed application. We have 4 areas of condo development for a total of 370 single unit family homes. Again, East Uniacke Road is just located here. We have Nature Drive, goes down into the current condo developments. We have the emergency access, which comes out to Long Lake Road, and the province owns Long Lake Road from East Uniacke Road up to about here. We have a parcel of land that's parkland at 8.25 hectares. The red shows delineated wetlands that would need approval if they're going to be filled in or altered. And then there is just this one parcel of land here. This here, the applicant has asked that it not be applicable to, that the development agreement not be applicable to this parcel of land, so that's just will be removed. Let's see. So policy RR13 of the municipal planning strategy allows council to consider entering into a development agreement for a residential Bearland condominium development. In considering the policy goal, council should consider the best interests of the municipality and the community are protected and to ensure that the proposed development within the comprehensive development district areas is appropriate in terms of its timing, content, appearances, and design. The applicant has supplied their own fiscal impact analysis, which was attached to the staff report. Our finance staff haven't had a chance to review that yet, but will as part of the final staff report. And the application is appealable to the Nova Scotia Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. So as part of the proposal, there's 4 mixed-use areas, and they're shown here on the map. So we have one here, and they're all located along Nature Drive with frontage on Nature Drive. So we have one here, and then down along this section here closer to that new public road. There's a list of proposed uses which will be included in the development agreement of what could happen in those commercial locations. Open space contribution. So at the request of Parks, Recreation and Culture, the developers proposed an 8.25 hectare open space parcel of land with frontage along Nature Drive and the new proposed public road. So again, it's just highlighted here in the circle, and Nature Drive and the new proposed public road. So we'll have frontage on both roads. The land is sufficiently large enough to provide the Greater East Uniacke community with a variety of recreational amenities as the area continues to develop. The proposed land contribution represents just over 50% of the required open space contribution. The remaining open space contribution will be provided as cash in lieu. Stormwater management. So as part of the development agreement requirements, we will be requiring a stormwater management stormwater management plans for each phase of the proposed development. Roads, a traffic impact study has been submitted for the application, and that has been attached to the staff report as well. The traffic impact study has been reviewed and accepted by Nova Scotia Public Works and INO, and the following items will need to be addressed as part of the development agreement. The proposed new public road extending from the intersection of Nature Drive to the provincially owned portion of Long Lake Road will be constructed to municipal standards for public roads by the developer so that we may be taken over by East Hants. Upgrades are required to be made to the intersection at Long Lake Road and East Uniacke Road. So if you look at the geometry of that road right now, it kind of comes in, it's not 90 degrees. I can't remember what they said in the report. I think it was like 60 some degrees. So they're going to realign that. And condominium roads will be constructed to private road standards. And where a condominium road ends at a property line, we've asked that a turning T will be required. So emergency responders, we did request feedback from the Uniacke District Volunteer Fire Department, and that was based on the original application. We asked for revised comments, but we didn't receive any. But based on the original application, Chief Darby had responded at that time that the only fire safety issues that came to mind for Cottage Country would be one road access for egress via Nature Drive during any large events such as a forest fire. And they said they had access to 2 dry hydrants in the area for water supply and adequate roads for fire apparatus usage. Our municipal EMO coordinators also had concerns with connectivity and emergency access in and around the community and suggested that no more than 100 Bearland condominium units be located on a single road access. The Centre for Education, we provided us comments on the original application, and they, I talked to them the other day, and basically, based on the 370 dwelling unit count, they project a student yield of 188 to 216 students from the development. And they did provide this here chart that shows the school capacity. Now, this was based on the original 550 dwelling unit application, but as I mentioned, it has been reduced. So these numbers are just a little bit off. A hydrogeological assessment was completed for the application. Staff did have questions, and the applicant has provided me with comments on my questions. I just didn't have time to review them because they were only just submitted Thursday or Friday last week. And we will include those in the final staff report. Citizen engagement, so we had public information meetings. We've done the questionnaire. Of the 509 questionnaires that were mailed, there were 34 responses received, and those responses have been provided to PAC members for the review. And the following slide here shows some of the responses and some of the comments and concerns that residents in the area had, and those were received at both the public information meeting and the questionnaires. And there were some people that were in favor of the application and spoke in favor of the application as well. This is just the flow chart to show where we are. Public information meeting, questionnaires mailed. We received most of our comments from internal and external agencies, and we're asking for initial consideration, and then we'd move forward to a public hearing. And the recommendation is that Planning Advisory Committee recommends the council give initial consideration to the development agreement and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie, for that report. Councilor Perry, wish to speak?
Thank you. I got some questions through you, Mr. Chair, to staff. On the original development agreement, the emergency access road went out to East Uniacke Road, correct?
Through, Mr. Chair, yes, so I'm gonna go back to the site plan. So the original application was for a redesignation, rezoning, and a development agreement, which included these lands up here. And at the time that there was, they did show an emergency access. I don't know if it was from here or from over here out to East Uniacke Road, but those lands are no longer under consideration. We're just looking at the development agreement, so we're not looking at a redesignation, rezoning. So it's looking for a connection along here, and then another connection to Sagebrush Drive in Village 2 here.
Yeah, because for those unfamiliar with Long Lake Road, it's a very poor maintained gravel road by the province. And, it's, lots of people redoing shocks and struts coming out that road every year because of the potholes and wear. And my next question would be probably to the Director of Infrastructure. As this gets built out, wouldn't the plan to build this out have to go through a lot of heavy machinery and development going across Nature Drive? And is Nature Drive rated for that level of truck traffic and weight?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Through Mr. Chair, the method of construction for this development is unknown by INO staff. So where they're sourcing their rock aggregate and how they're planning to transport it is an unknown at this time. If it was the weight concern would be something they would need to adhere to. If they were crossing provincial roads, they would have to adhere to seasonal weight restrictions depending on the time of year. And that's something the staff would have to monitor. It's a large development. It's out of sight, out of mind. So probably a pre-assessment and photos. And the only thing the municipality will really be able to do for governance consistently is monitor and if there's damage to the road, is seek compensation for it, whether that's leveraging the MGA or civil, if that came up. But pre and post photos will be ideal, but that's a risk. But as I mentioned, staff don't know how they're planning to build the road. Are they sourcing materials from on site? Are they bringing it from off site? That's a question.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking if they're, they do have a source on site and they do have permission to make their own aggregate. And, I just, we don't have any spring restrictions and weight limits for passage of stuff like that happening on our roads, because normally you have to access a provincial road before you access one of our roads. So I'm just a little worried about the degradation to Nature Drive, which is now a municipal asset. And when I first read through the report and going through, I initially thought that second egress road was gonna go out to East Uniacke Road. And then as I got further in the report, I saw that it was going around onto Long Lake Road, which I think by the final report time comes, we should have some photos of that road so everybody can get a true appreciation of the condition of the road and what it's kept up to. Because that, along with other gravel roads in that area, are pretty rough. And so I just want to make sure that people know what the condition of that road can be. And that's all I have for right now at the moment. There's a lot of stuff floating in my head, but I'm going to try and sort it out first. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to staff. Lots of stuff in this report. Thank you. So on page 5, in the second paragraph, it talks about Sagebrush Drive. And I was just looking for a little clarification, I guess, because it talks there, it seems to speak to, like, that would be an important piece in the 100 lot access requirement. And it does say that there's currently no legal requirement for the condo corp to permit this connection. So it just seemed, a little, I don't know if confusing is the right word, but could you just add a little perspective on what the situation is there?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. So just to give you some context, so area 4 and 3 back here, there's a number of condo units, and they would have to either come out this way or this way to access. The applicant has shown a connection with Sagebrush Drive and into the new area 4. However, these are private roads owned by the condo corporation. This condo corporation, Village 2 here, I think that's I can't remember which condo corporation this is, sorry.
Number 12?
Number 12.
Yes.
Yeah, it has no legal obligation in order to allow for that access.
So what if it doesn't happen? They don't allow it, it doesn't happen. Is everything still okay from the 100 lot, secondary access issue, or?
So the applicant may be limited to how many units they could develop back here if they couldn't get a second connection into here, so to allow for the folks back here to exit through Sagebrush Drive. Now, there is a benefit to the people living in County Condominium Corporation number 12, because then they could have legal access over this road in case of emergency for them to be able to get out that way. So there is
Yeah, understand.
benefit.
So there's arguments for it for sure. I guess I'm just wondering, how far would this whole process go before we had a determination of what the final answer on that was?
through you, Mr. Chair, would be written into the development agreement. So you might not necessarily have that answer right now. Basically, they could develop all the rest of this locations, but maybe once they get back to this area here, before they could develop over 100 units, they would have to have a legal, it would be written into the development agreement that they have to have a legal access to
Okay.
Sagebrush Drive.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have many questions. I'm gonna start with the open space contribution. So how do staff or how do the money located for that will be determine how much is it, like per acre or per assessment or?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, open space contribution in this area is 5% of the area to be developed requires to be open space contribution. So the application, PRC staff reviewed it, and they identified that they would like to have approximately 8.25 hectares of land on a public road for part of the open space contribution. The other part of it would become in cash in lieu of open space of the actual land. And so that's based on assessment, usually by PVSE at time of development. So probably at each phase of the condo development, when we come to go, this is how I picture it right now. I have to confirm with our solicitor. So each phase of the condo development, when our development officer has to sign off on that condo phase and those units are actually created, then there'd be an assessment of the valuation of those lots by PVSE, and it would be whatever the percentages that's required would be done at that point in time.
Okay. My next question is about, there's a lot of residents have some restriction about their, like, let's say Meek Arm Trail, they have public access to the lake. that they maintain per themselves from their corporation. So how others gonna use that? Are they gonna be allowed to use that public access while other people are paying to maintain it? So I don't know how that's gonna work, if you can.
Do you, Mr. Chair, the access is owned by the municipality, so it's right down here, and there's trails through this area here as well. That's owned by the municipality. Anybody can access that parcel of open space, that parkland, whether you live in Mount Uniacke or you live somewhere else.
No, I'm talking about the one on each road, like on
Oh, and
Nika
each of
and
these,
Tre-
so those aren't public ownership, those are under private ownership under the
private
condo
ownership. Yeah,
corporations.
Yeah,
Yeah, so those are controlled by the condo corporations, and it'll be up to the condo corporations to determine who has access to those. So if they don't want to have the people from the new condo development to have access to those docking points, then they don't have to provide those accesses.
so they're allowed to block people from accessing.
Yep, yep.
Okay, and about this stormwater studies, are they gonna go by phase or?
Through Mr. Chair, I imagine that's how we would request it, is that in the development agreement that, so with the new public road, they'll have to do a stormwater management plan anyways when that's built. And that's one of the first things that be required as part of the development agreement before they could start getting development permits for any of the actual dwellings. They'd have to build that new public road. And there'd be a stormwater management plan with that new public road. And then at each phase of the, or each condo development, each area, they would have to submit a new stormwater management plan for each part of that development.
Each part?
Yeah.
A new, okay.
Yeah.
And right now, we had to put some streetlights on Heritage Way. Not Heritage Way, like on Nature Drive. On the municipal road, we have like so many lights going on. So on the new municipal road, is there any way we can get the developer to put those streetlights or something
Through,
that we could ask through development agreement?
through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe that, the CAO can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe the cottage country area is in the streetlight serviced area. So in order to require the developer to have streetlights on that new public road, they would have to be in the streetlights area. And the correct phase of power would have to be on each of those poles. So right now, I also don't believe that there's correct phasing on the power lines that go along Nature Drive to put streetlights on. I think that was the issue with it. So those are the two things that have to occur. If it was in a streetlight service area, then yes, the applicant would be required to put in streetlights.
Okay. And some residents have concern about the water. And the staff have some, you're gonna bring it up in the next report because I didn't see anything.
It's you, Mr. Chair, yes. So the applicant has completed hydrogeological studies based on the original application, and then they had it refined by Strum. And staff did have questions, and the applicant has responded to those questions. I just received the comments, though, on Thursday, Friday, and I didn't have time to go through them. And
Yeah, I was reading here about well interference was likely to exceed the NSE suggested threshold if more than 34 to 60 well drill on site. This was almost entirely due to the very low average. So there's a lot of concern from residents, and some of them already running out of water already. So that's a concern for me too. And of course, the East Uniacke Road is not in the 5-year budget for the province to be paved, and it's already torn down. Like half the road is gone on both sides. So the heavy traffic from construction and the speed from construction vehicles has been noticed by all the residents on East Uniacke Road. So that's a big concern for me. And of course, the province doesn't see any problem there. So they said it's okay, everything is okay. But to me, nothing is okay when the road is the asphalt is rocks now, like it's not asphalt anymore. So that's a big concern for me, so I like to see the final report, but it doesn't look good to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Director of Park and Rec, do you want to weigh in on the open space or the cash in lieu to clarify what he was asking? Go ahead.
That's not green. Am I good?
Yep.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. No, I think Debbie actually calculated it accurately. What I would say is, or captured it accurately. What I would say is when staff look at the parcels, obviously we look at the size of the parcel, and for this particular region, obviously we're looking for a fairly large park, which in future, as it would be developed out, you're looking at a significant regional park. It's 8 hectares, which I think is 20 plus acres. So obviously the number of amenities and what you could develop there in future is significant, and that really is to balance out the number of people in that location. The other part that staff look at is the size of parcel, but also we try to balance out the financial piece to it as well. So the cash in lieu that we get to help supplement the build would sort of balance it out as well. So you're not looking at a significant portion that would necessarily come just from the municipality. If we can do a balance of both land and financial benefit from the developer, then we certainly take that into consideration as well.
Thank you for that. Is that all, Counselor? Counselor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, this new municipal road, would that be a paved road?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it doesn't, under our current regulations, it doesn't have to be a paved road. It can be a gravel road, as long as it meets our public road standards.
Okay, because I would not be in favor of another gravel road going on our books, where they paved Nature Drive on the way in. I think the municipal roads in there should be paved, and I'm glad to see that a turning T was put in as a requirement for the private roads. Now, in the first couple phases, for residents in that area, there has been service collection issues because of the topography of the roads.
Yes.
And so their collection is seasonal, because of the icing and stuff. Is there anything in our current private road standard that would alleviate that? So this way here, any new residents going in there could be assured that they would not have to deal with seasonal collection.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've actually spoken to our INO staff about that issue, about the grade issue, and basically, one of our engineers has provided me with some wording to add to the development agreement to talk about grade, so that grade doesn't exceed a certain, I can't remember if it's what the percentage is, but anyways, that it doesn't exceed a certain percentage, so that we don't have that same issue again.
Yeah, because it goes more than just for garbage collection. It also goes for emergency response.
Yeah.
Right? Fire trucks, ambulances and things like that. We've had some instances with some of them going in the ditch on other roads that have way less of a gradient, and some of these roads have quite the up and down. So I just want to make sure that any residents that move into the area are safe and secure for their future, as well as we're seeing a lot of the demographics moving into that area, being people who are downsizing, changing their lifestyle, want more of the rural feel. They've lived a lot of their careers, and now they're entering the next phase of life, and they're very active, trails and pickleball and everything else. But at a certain point, taking garbage a kilometer or two down a road to put it in a large bin becomes troublesome for some people. So we want to make sure that their quality of life is not negatively impacted by an improperly graded road that could also jeopardize a little bit of safety as well. So that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. There is a motion, committee. What is your wish? Warden Rolston,
Planning Advisory
just a
Committee,
minute.
oh, sorry, no, I have to do that, sorry.
Go ahead.
Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give initial consideration to enter into a development agreement to permit a 370 dwelling unit bare land condominium development on 323 hectares of land with multi-use development, commercial and residential, for lands owned by 3230225 Nova Scotia Limited Cottage Country and identified as PID 451553114, PID 454033144, PID 453-92602, and PID 451-55306 East Uniac to enable a public hearing and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
So moved in second. On before the motion, Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to recognize that obviously the area councilors definitely have some concerns they're bringing forth on behalf of their residents. And I will support the motion at this point and seeing where it goes from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed 11-1 with Councillor Musa voting nay. Thank you, Debbie. Next item is Plan 25-009, McIntosh Road, request to designate and rezone. Rachel, you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the subject property is outlined in red. We have had a report presented to Planning Advisory Committee previously, so I'm gonna skip over some of the information. So it's currently zoned agricultural reserve, and the applicant is requesting to change the zone and designation. And initially, the application was to change the zone and designation for the whole of the property, but now he's requesting to change that to just a portion of the property. So you can see here on the zoning map here, this is the proposed zoning, and he's reduced the size of the proposed request. And that was following a motion passed at the Agricultural Advisory Committee. He's amended his request to just the portion, and the split zoning will still enable the applicant to construct a non-farm dwelling or a mini home and any associated accessory buildings with that non-farm use. The remainder of the land will be kept as agricultural reserve. And these measurements were provided to me by the applicant for the amount of land that he felt he needed to install his mini home. So an agricultural impact study has been provided, and that has been scanned and provided for Planning Advisory Committee. And the results are also of that, summary of that is in the staff report, but further information will be provided in the final staff report. So as I mentioned, Agricultural Advisory Committee did pass a motion. They met on January 13th to discuss the application. And some committee members mentioned that the land not being farmed was not a valid reason for the rezoning, noting that the adjacent land was being farmed. And comments were also made that the majority of the corridor has similar soil. So the committee voted unanimously, or recommended unanimously, that the rezoning request be denied for the rezoning of the entire property. So they did discuss a potential split zoning, and they felt that this approach would be a good compromise and seemed generally acceptable to the committee. And that's following that meeting, staff had a discussion with the applicant, and the applicant had decided to go along with that approach. There was a public information meeting held on January the 6th. There were 5 people attended, and comments and questions for this application related to a request for clarification on the site plan, and then questions regarding process for the application. We've also sent out questionnaires to property owners within 300 meters of the application site. And you can see down here on the flow diagram that we're currently at the first reading stage. And
The recommendation and recommended motion is on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I always have a bit of trouble with some of these. This particular land was captured in the AR zone back when we put the original AR zone in place. Do we know if this piece of property has ever been used as active agricultural land since the zoning went in?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the zoning at the point that it came in, it would have been active agricultural land at that point.
Not necessarily, I was here then.
Okay. I do know that since the applicant has owned the land in 2020, it's not been farmed since then. I think there's some information in the agricultural impact study. But I don't believe that the previous property owner also, I think they didn't farm the land. So for at least this property owner and the previous one haven't farmed the land.
Well, I have a problem with land in the municipality being very restrictively zoned as agricultural land when it's never been used as such. And when we initially brought in AR zoning, that did happen because we used the ALIP mapping. I think that's what it was called at the time. And we were going to go back and double check it afterwards, and that never happened. So I suspect that we know there have been numerous small quarter acre, small properties that inadvertently get captured. And this is a little larger property that inadvertently get captured. Now, if the owner is happy reducing the ask to part of a land, I will certainly support it. But I have some sympathy. He has land that's zoned agricultural. He went through the prescribed thing to get it changed. He paid the money for a study that said it's not great agricultural land. And, we still kind of dissuaded him from the whole thing. So I still struggle with how we determine what is and isn't agricultural land from the get-go. The same thing happened in the rural area when we were looking at that. Every little cleared field anywhere got slapped with AR when it shouldn't. Just because it's cleared land doesn't mean it should be considered agricultural land. So I'm going to support this because the owner has, indicated that he's okay with doing it this way, but I'd have probably supported it the other way too. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make the recommended motion. Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council give first reading to the proposed amendments to the MPS and LUB by changing the land use designation and zone from agricultural reserve to rural use for a portion of 47 McIntosh Road, Upper Non-Mall River, and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
So moved and second. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Oops.
No,
We had a late question. You go back, please. Sorry, Councilor Perry, go ahead.
No problem, Mr. Chair. No, just totally agree with the warden. The fact that, the soil reports is poor to fair at best. I don't, if this person hasn't farmed it in 5 years, does the applicant have any intention to engage in agriculture on the rest of their property, or are they just trying to do whatever they can to be able to build their place to live? Like, there's just some questions here. It's not really adding up. It's like they got the report back from a committee and they're just gonna do whatever the committee wants to make sure that they can get a place to live. Like, I don't know what the whole thing is. If the report says its land is poor, and, do they plan on farming that land? Does staff know?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant is not planning on farming the land, but there is landowners, agricultural landowners, that will lease the land to other farmers. That can be quite common. I think the committee, the Agricultural Advisory Committee, they did look at they were provided with the agricultural impact study and they did review that. And that their conclusion was that although it's maybe not the best quality soil, there is other land that's currently being farmed of a similar quality. So it's not that it can't be farmed, it's just, there are other examples where that type of land is being farmed. And the applicant, just to go back to the applicant, he seemed okay with the reduction in the area of land because his ultimate request is he wants to be able to put his dwelling on the land, and this would allow him to do that, but still retain that land for agricultural use should it be needed in the future. And just through Mr. Chair, I could just also just make a comment that through the plan review that is just getting going now, I know that there will be a report on agricultural land, so there will be the ability to review how land is currently zoned agricultural reserve and look at whether there's alternative ways that can meet the statements of provincial interest with regards to protection of agricultural land. So there may be some changes coming from that or some recommended changes to what land is zoned agricultural reserve. And I can't speak to how that report will shape out, but I do know there is going to be a future report on that.
Because one of the questions I have is like, was the applicant clearly identified that with the remaining portion being agricultural reserve, the restrictions that he would be under in the event that, going forward unless he'd have to go through a process again to have it on classified agricultural reserve, the split zoning on his property for expansion, for, subdividing a piece, because that land is plenty large enough, to be subdivided and things like that. So I just want to make sure that the applicant knows was advised in all the ins and outs beforehand, because I'd hate to go through this process where they've spent a great deal of money to be able to build, and then once they build and once they realize that, they'd like to expand or do something, and then they're right back at square one again. So was there a sit down with the applicant explaining all of the pros and cons and what can and cannot be done with the remaining piece as zoned as agricultural?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I did have a meeting with him, face-to-face meeting. We had a discussion about what would happen if this changed the land. So if you had it split zoned, what that would mean for him, and he was okay with that. Like he didn't push back on that request to change the land so that it's a portion of the land. So we did have a sit-down meeting, and I did go through everything with him at that point in time.
Okay. Now, we're going to send this forward to a final thing. Between now and then, the proposed area of split zoning, would there be any opportunity for the applicant to come in between now and then and either increase that size or decrease it, or would it have to remain the same at this point in time before going to a final report?
Through you, Mr. Chair, so you couldn't increase it in size between now and the final reading. This is first reading. This is if council give a first reading to this proposed amendment based on that map, that's what will be considered at the public hearing. I think you could reduce that in size, so you could keep more of the agricultural reserves land, but you can't increase the rural use zone. And also, just to say, I did do the measurements on the land, and the applicant will still have, I wrote it down somewhere, excuse me. It was about 1.7 acres. This area of land here is rural use land, so it's not an insignificant area of land. It still allows him to put on there what he wants to do and some more. Like it's expanded past where he wants to put his mini home. I don't have that with me, but I believe it was 1.7 acres.
No, I just like the warden said, want to make sure that all the avenues were clearly explained to the applicant, so they don't have to go through this again in 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just following up again, excuse me. Interesting question by Councillor Perry. So I'm just curious if perchance we were to, at first reading, approve the whole property, then it could be reduced at second reading?
John could correct me, but because if you're reducing it, you're essentially keeping part of what's already there. So if you, say, for example, wanted to reduce the rural use zoning at second reading, so you wanted, if you can see my cursor there, if you wanted to kind of split that in half so that the rest remained agricultural reserve, that wouldn't, I don't believe that that would be an issue at the second reading
My
public hearing
question
stage.
is, if at first reading, we changed it and said the entire subject property, then if further information came in at second reading, it could be reduced to the suggested size.
I believe you could do that, but I'll let John weigh in on that.
Go ahead, John.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Rachel's exactly right. You could, because as she said, what's important is you've given second reading to doing, or first reading to doing something. And if you decide not to do it for portion of that property, that's okay, but you can't add more to the do. And in this case, the doing is changing it from rural use to AR.
It still continues to trouble me that this is not a farm property. It's not going to be farmed, and yet we're putting the same restrictions on it as we're putting on a farmer's field that he makes hay on every year. And I understand that there's a lot of other land with similar soil classifications that's being actively farmed. That land has probably been amended and fertilized and limed and had lots done with it over the years in order to make it arable and good for agricultural use. I strongly suggest that the proponent is not intending to fertilize and lime and plow and till the property for agricultural use. So I do continue to question the value of insisting that this remain zoned agricultural when it is surrounded on the other sides by rural use land. And not everybody that has a patch of cleared land wants to farm it. Maybe he wants a wildflower meadow. Maybe he wants to attempt to grow a tree lot at some time. Maybe he just wants a buffer from his neighbors. I don't know. That doesn't mean it has to be agricultural land. So, you know, when we look at this in the plan review, I don't know how we're going to do it because I think there are going to be a lot of properties that are similar. And what are we going to do, you know, if this owner lets this property grow up into forestry land over the next 20, 30 years? We're still going to say it's agricultural and you can't do anything else with it? That just doesn't make sense.
Mr. Chair, could I?
Go ahead.
Sure. So the warden raises an interesting question, and really a plan review question, I think. Part of the philosophy of your agricultural zoning is that it's not just to reflect the current use, it's to reflect the resource, so that, you know, if you just follow, the zoning changed immediately after the land use changed, then there'd really be no agricultural land protection. You could stop farming, we would change the zoning, and you could do whatever you wanted and develop that land. So part of the philosophy is that you're in an agricultural district. So, you know, whether you stop farming or the last two owners stopped farming. Now, if it was never in agricultural, if it was never in farming, then we probably shouldn't have zoned it that way in the first place. But we did do, the warden referred to the ALIP, the Agricultural Land Information Project, back in the late 90s, is where the original information came from. It was a provincial funded project to go try and map every farm in Nova Scotia. It wasn't perfect, I'm sure it wasn't, like any large mapping exercise, especially before GIS. It was basically done with field checking and air photos. But it was the best information that we had at the time. And I mean, when I look at the air photos of this particular property, it looks to me like it may have been, if not cropping hay or something in the past, because it's just what it looks like. But But anyway, I just wanted to add a bit of perspective as to the zoning doesn't just chase the current use, it's meant to protect a resource. So that's why, you can have why an ag advisory committee would recommend a piece of land that hasn't been farmed in a decade or more remain zoned for agricultural land protection.
But that has to be balanced with the rights of ownership
Of
of
course.
land. And it's not owned by a farmer or anyone who wants to farm it. So I struggle with this. I suspect, as Councillor Perry said, that the owner heard what the Ag Advisory Committee said and thought, well, I better take whatever little sliver of hope they offer me. And anyway, I would have been quite prepared to vote to rezone the entire subject property based on the study that this person paid for and brought forward and supported. However, the owner has chosen to reduce the ask, and so I will certainly support it so that he can get his mini home and have his home, but it's a struggle. Agricultural land is a struggle. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in keeping with my fellow councillors' concerns, yeah, I expect that he was persuaded by the possibility of council possibly turning this down altogether, right? So conceded to make the property smaller in the hopes of getting it passed, and that doesn't seem right to me. So if he were to put what he wants to put on the smaller portion of property and then decided down the road that he needed a little more, he would be coming back and doing the exact same, going through the exact same process. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes. If this land, through the plan review, ends up staying as agricultural reserve, then yes, he would need to go through that same process.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Councillor?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. Somebody hasn't voted yet? He wasn't here when the motion was stopped. Councillor Russo? Okay. Then the motion is passed unanimously. Thank you, Rachel, for that report. Thank you, Rachel. Next item on the agenda is Plan 25-013, Arkham Developments Limited, a supplementary report regarding parking. Go ahead, Rachel, when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the meeting last month, concerns were received regarding the Arkham Developments Limited application for the rezoning to townhouse zone. And they did, council last month did give approval to move forward to a public information meeting, but wanted to see a report on the potential parking changes to be discussed before the public information meeting. So this supplementary report deals exclusively with those parking concerns, and a future report regarding the townhouse zone will come back to Plan Advisory Committee. So just a note there that through the plan review, there will be a review of other parking requirements. So there'll be a report on parking as a background report. So there will be opportunity to review any other concerns that may be had there. This deals specifically with townhouse zone parking. So if the Arkham Developments application is approved, the development would be subject to the land use bylaw minimum parking standards. So as you cannot have more than six more than six on-street townhouses and cluster townhouses in one block, the minimum parking requirement is one space for each dwelling unit, and that caused some concerns to Plan Advisory Committee last month. So I did a jurisdictional scan and looked at the town of Truro, Colchester County, Kings County, and the town of Chester. And in all but the town of Chester, the parking requirements for a 6-unit townhouse building is greater than the minimum one parking space per unit that is required in East Hants. And they're all calculated slightly differently than we calculate here. But I've just done that on a basis of a 2-bedroom unit so that you could kind of come up with a comparative number. I also looked at the development agreements that have recently been approved for Clayton Developments, Amco Capital, and FH Developments. And in those development agreements, on-street and stacked townhouses were required to have 2 parking spaces, and that would be either 2 on the driveway or 1 on the driveway and 1 in a garage. And then cluster townhouses, each dwelling unit again shall have a minimum of 2 parking spaces, or each dwelling unit shall have a garage that shall accommodate a minimum of 1 vehicle. And the reason I mentioned that for cluster is that common shared parking is permitted, but in the Clayton Amco, Clayton and FH Development one, you'd be required to have the 2 parking spaces, but in the Amco Capital one for cluster townhouses, you would be required to meet the standard for in the land use bylaw. So after reviewing the municipal parking requirements for townhomes and also the WCD development agreements, staff are recommending amending the parking requirements as follows, so that each dwelling unit shall have a driveway that shall accommodate a minimum of 2 vehicles. So that would be 2 on a driveway, or 1 on a driveway and 1 in the garage. And then common shared parking is permitted with a ratio matching the requirements for multi-unit, 1.5 spaces per unit, and 1 visitor space per 7 units. So that's the same as the Amco development agreement. And the recommendation is that to include the amendments to the townhouse parking requirements into the current application. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rachel. Deputy Warden Dixon?
Thank you. Through the chair to Rachel. You mentioned the one car plus a garage. Is there a minimum size for the garage? I know my wife has a car that'll fit in the garage. My truck won't fit in most garages. That to me would be a concern.
So the garage would need to be at least the it would need to be able to fit the vehicle, so 2.8 by 5.6. The garage would need to have that space inside. So I did.
Jesse's thinking.
I think I may know what was coming. The next question with regard to vehicles, I did look at the size of vehicles, and all cars that I looked at, full, large SUVs, minivans, they all fell within that size requirements. So the 2.5 by the 5.6 meters in length, but trucks don't fall within that. So a truck wouldn't fit within that 5.6 meters if it was within the garage.
A large family vehicle would probably fit in there.
Yes.
No, that's great for me. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Go ahead, Warden.
Thank you. Well, this makes things a little better. My concern comes down to the common shared parking, which would only be 11 and a half parking spaces for 7 units, whereas the other would be 14 spaces. So is there some reason that if we are adjusting the schedule for the townhouse parking, that we couldn't at least make that equal out into the 14 spaces that would be required if it wasn't shared parking? I don't think because it's shared parking is going to mean people are going to have any fewer vehicles to park, or there are going to be any fewer vehicles. So it would just make sense to me that if we were changing it, that the common and shared parking should have a ratio that would be equal to 2 parking spaces per unit. That's just my thoughts. I know we didn't do that somewhere else, but this is a little different. We're changing the rules, so to speak, so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so that would match what was done with the Clayton and the FH Development agreement. It's a similar approach, so that your shared parking is based on a ratio of 2 parking spaces. I guess our thoughts are that with a shared parking area, you generally don't have everyone parking there all at one point in time. So by sharing it, you know, when your neighbor is out, you may be at home, or if it's kind of like everyone's sharing it. So it would have to be every single person would need to be there to, I guess, max out that parking area. That's generally the thought process in terms of why it's a lower parking ratio for those shared parking areas. But if PAC wanted to go down the requiring 2 for shared parking as well, it is consistent with those 2 other development agreements.
Well, I would think myself that, at night, for example, you might very well have everybody trying to park and not enough parking spaces. So for me, I don't know where the amendment would have to be made, but I would be looking for a minimum of 2 spaces per unit. And if it's shared parking, well, I guess you don't have an additional visitor parking the other way. I could go either way on that, but I'd want at least a minimum of 2 spaces per unit. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, from my residence, particularly in the Concord Way area and what was Sam Court, my former area, it's always about don't come at lunchtime, come after supper and see what I'm talking about. It's the evening and weekends that pose the problem. And unfortunately, an evening comes every single day. So, and as far as the garage goes, I'm thinking it would probably fit some of those big family vehicles, but they'd be exiting by way of the hatchback, because I don't know how they'd be getting out the doors. So this is what we've got going on in Sam Court, and the street is lined with vehicles. So it may look good on paper, but whatever we're doing, it's not working realistically. The garage and the single parking lot in these big 3-bedroom, 3-level townhouses that are being built. That's it for me, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following along Councillor Cole's line of thought, you had me, each dwelling unit shall have a driveway that will accommodate a minimum of 2 vehicles. Bang, to me, that's where it should have been left. But then it goes on, or each dwelling shall have a garage that shall accommodate a minimum of 1 vehicle, and a driveway that shall accommodate 1 parking space. I don't agree with that, because a lot of these garages that are built are filled with storage because people need that extra storage component, and a lot of garage, so the garage wouldn't be guaranteed it was gonna be used. I think the garage is kind of a ghost in this, and I do believe that each dwelling unit should require 2 parking spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Musa.
I think Councillor Rhino hit it. I was gonna say, like, not every garage is a garage. It's a storage place now, and I know my daughter have 2, and they're full of junk. Like, none of the vehicle are inside. So, yeah, I agree 100% with you, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Nobody left wishing to speak? Warden Rolston.
Thank you. So, through you to staff, what is the process to change these recommended amendments? I don't see a motion or anything here. Okay. So we would have to make changes to the recommendations in the staff report prior to making the motion, correct?
Yes.
Well, I will. Well, I don't know if that it will work to tell staff to bring it back, because we have Arkham Developments with an application in that we don't want to process under the current.
So these proposed amendments would be, you still have to give first readings to these changes. So there will be, whatever you decide to recommend us today, that we will bring it back for first reading. This isn't requesting first reading for this particular wording.
Well, I will start things off and I will move that the recommendation change to, back here, for common and shared parking would be 2 spaces per unit with 1 visitor space per every 7 units. So I will move that change.
It's a move and second on the change with the common and shared parking. Everybody understands? Any discussion on that? Deputy Warden,
Okay, thank you, through the chair. This excludes the garage, I'm assuming.
This has nothing to do with that
With the
part.
They're all, okay, that's all I need to know, thank you.
thank you, Deputy Warden. Councillor Perry,
So this would move it from 1 to 2, doubling, or 1.5 to 2?
It would make it the same as the standalone townhouses.
And how much more of ground area would that require to be paved? If I could ask that to staff.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so the recommended change is 2 spaces plus 1 space per 7 units. I think that's correct. So that would mean that for every 2 units, you would need an additional parking space over and above what the common shared parking is required now. Because right now, if the changes are made in accordance with the staff report here, it would be 1.5 spaces per unit plus the visitor space. So if we just ignore the visitor space for now, and you change that from 1.5 space to 2 spaces, so for every 2 units, you would have an additional space.
3.5 more spaces, I believe.
No, just trying to, the old song says, pave paradise and put up a parking lot. That leads to water issues, that leads to everything else. We're talking about flooding and everything else. So I just want to make sure it's not a super large footprint that's going to impact things, especially in developments, because if there's a ton of these buildings going up and you're adding more and more asphalt, then you're going to have to, it's going to impact stormwater management, it's going to impact a lot of other things. So, thank you.
thank you, Councillor. Nobody left to speak. We'll go to the vote on the common shared parking. And that motion is passed unanimously. What happens to the motion on the screen, Rachel, from here on in? Okay, so the motion on the screen has been amended, so,
That motion's never been made yet.
Once you make this motion?
It will reflect the changes to the report.
okay. Councillor Garden Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Warden, did you just make an amendment to the staff report?
So the
Yes.
recommendations in the staff report.
So I would like to make a recommendation to the staff. I mean, the thing of it is, as we build out and all these new developments and buildings come and more residents come, they're not having fewer cars. They're only having more cars and more people are living in units. So as a reflection of that, I'm making a recommendation to the staff report that every standalone townhouse have 2 parking spots in keeping with the shared parking change that we've just made.
You're not allowing the garage to be considered a parking space.
Not allowing the garage to be considered a parking spot. I think every one of those 3-story, 3-bedroom, standalone townhouses should have 2 parking spots outside. And lots of them are having to add one already, by the way.
I'll refer to the director for comment.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just point out that I don't think we've ever seen a municipality that wouldn't count a garage as a parking spot. And, you know, folks have a choice. If they can use it for storage or if they need it for parking, they can get rid of their junk or put it in the basement or rent a storage unit. So it's, I would call it an onerous requirement compared to other municipalities, what everyone else is doing, just to let you know.
Thank you, John.
Well, I'll second the motion for discussion anyway. Well, I thought Sandra just made a motion.
I did just make a motion to.
A recommendation?
She meant.
You made a motion? Councilor Rhino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director, I really respect your comments. I know you're very passionate about what you do. However, I don't agree with you. I do believe that this municipality has been upfront and leader in many, many things. Just because this may go against a belief of planning, that's not to say that it doesn't have merit and it is not important. And it sure must have been important because we passed this unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't support the motion because at the end of the day, if the garage is not gonna be counted as a parking spot, they just won't build a garage.
That's okay.
So it's not gonna change anything. And I do believe, it is the owner's responsibility to determine what they do with their parking spots, not council. I do think it's a little bit of government overreach saying that we don't trust you to use your 2 parking spots responsibly. Because if they don't, that's what we have enforcement for. If they start parking on the streets, that's what we have tickets for, that's what we have everything else, because they're not gonna use their property responsibly. So I can't support that motion because in a lot of these areas and these townhouses, they're side by side, there's very little grass and green space as is, and this is just gonna make it even worse.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Musa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thinking about the shared parking, I think it's gonna cause a lot of problems because many people love to have a third car, just not to drive, but a fancy car, and they're gonna park it all the time and probably use it once a week or once a month. So that's gonna be taking a spot from the other places. I think by having 2 parking per unit and is a much better control and doesn't cause any conflict between the neighbors.
The shared parking is a separate subject for if there is not on-site parking provided. That's what the shared parking referred to.
Yeah, but if you have shared parking for 12 cars, somebody could have 4 cars and drive only 2. Like you'll have to have another car just for a sports car or not use it and park it all the time there, and that will take space from other people to use. So that's how I see it. I don't know.
Go ahead, Rachel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So shared parking is actually in the land use bylaw now. So this would be for like your apartment buildings and the type of units. So we would have like your stacked townhouse units. So like the units down next to Copper Soul, the red building there, they have shared parking because there isn't a driveway for each individual unit. So that's where that would come into play. And that's currently in our in your land use bylaw now, that required ratio and the ability to have shared parking.
Okay.
Councilor Tingley?
Through the chair, I'm going to support this motion. I appreciate what the director says about planning and trying to maximize the use of space. But we see it in this municipality. with garages as well. It's just not working. It's trying to have all these vehicles and one parking lot and a garage or just one parking lot. There needs to be, I think there needs to be two parking spaces. We're restricting land so much, after a while, we're gonna ask people to sleep standing up. We can drive through the corridor area and see all kinds of places, and Councillor Garden Cole talks about her area where the cars are jammed all over the roads and everything, you can't get in there. So I think we've just gone too far with restricting it down to only one parking space, including the garage. So I'm going to support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor. John, I'll go to you for comment.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, some clarification, I think, on the amendment. I think the term standalone townhouse was used. I'm not quite sure what's meant by that. Do you mean that the parking's all on site in front of the townhouse as opposed to the shared parking? Because there's really no such thing as a standalone townhouse, right? That's a house.
Standalone parking.
Councillor
I
Garden
think
Cole,
she meant
you want to
standalone
explain
parking.
what you meant?
Yeah, I think I meant standalone parking. What I meant was, well, in my mind, I was visualizing what I was seeing in my mind, but, so you're talking about shared parking. Give me an example of the shared parking we were just talking about. Like, give me a example around the community of shared parking in a development.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so you would get that with an apartment building, so it would be like a common parking area. But I know that the townhouses down on Highway 214, next to Copper Soul, like on the other side of Copper Soul, they have parking in the rear of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Those are townhouse units, but they have a common parking area. So that's what we would be talking about there.
And say the new townhouses across from the Elmsdale Legion.
I can't visualize the plan for those.
Okay. Just wondering if you would consider those shared parking or individual parking. They differ from say, Sam Crescent.
So the difference would be if you have your own driveway, that would be right in front of your dwelling unit, townhouse unit. That would be the middle column paragraph there. The last one would be, the only one I can think of in terms of townhouses is like I said, the one on 214. I'm not familiar with the other one you mentioned.
Okay, well, it doesn't matter anyway. Yeah, so in my mind, regardless of the terminology that I'm using, I'm thinking of Sam Crescent and the new development at the top of the Tyler, where you've got the 3-story, 3-bedroom, standalone units with the little tiny driveways. And those are the ones that I'm referring to. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Director, any comments?
So I think I understand now, Mr. Chair. I think we're talking about what we would call on-site parking. So it's on-site in front of your dwelling unit as opposed to a shared lot somewhere else.
Thank you for that clarification. Warden Rolston?
Yes, speaking in support of the motion, but I'm just going to provide a caution that this change would only apply to townhouses at this time. It would not apply to single unit dwellings like maybe I think on Sam Crescent. This is just changing, we're doing townhouses now. So speaking in support, and if this change would cause developers to not include garages in their buildings, that's a choice of the developer and what he thinks that the consumer would purchase. There would still be two parking spaces per unit available. And if a developer decided to include a garage as well, then that's a bonus. There'll be 3 parking spaces in some, so I'm going to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff. What's the current requirement for single-family dwelling home?
Through Mr. Chair, it's 1 parking space.
1 parking space for a single unit family home in R1. And we are going to put in a row house 2. So it's like a single family home could have 10 bedrooms in it, could have 9 bedrooms in it. So if you look at how it's going along, you're putting a more restriction on a smaller footprint of a home than you are on larger homes. So I just think that if there's a garage, it's up to the owners. I'm not gonna vote for something to tell people how to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Marion?
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Director of Planning. John, wanted to ask you, when you said onerous before in the context of this, could you elaborate, please, on, in as much detail as you can about why? What are some of the negatives that I'm missing here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Well, I don't know of any other municipality that would not let you count a garage as a parking stall. And in fact, there's some 2-car garages out there, which I guess we would no longer be able to count. That just feels onerous to me, and it adds to costs. You're now, in addition to that spot, you're gonna have to have that outdoor spot for a car. So, as we're thinking about the cost of housing and so on, there's a negative there, of course. And as Councillor Perry alluded to, there are other issues that come with that, just the amount of land that's covered with asphalt and the impervious surface, which causes stormwater management more of an issue, and all those other things, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McPhee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After thinking like visualizing the homes when you first turn into Kiln Creek, I think they have those long, tall, narrow, 3-story buildings. They have a garage in them, I think, don't they? They have a garage in each one of those. Just trying to picture them in my mind.
I can't visualize those buildings themselves, but the requirements for those, I do know it's 2 parking spaces and 1 can be in the garage.
One could be.
Yes,
But they are supposed to have 2 parking
Yes.
spaces, yeah. And I must say, I understand what people mean about a garage. As far as parking in it, I have a garage that could easily accommodate 5 F-150s. I just downsized to 4 vehicles myself. I can get 2 of them in my garage. That's my choice. That's just happens to be, I got a lot of stuff that I'd like to clear out of my garage. I'd like to get more vehicles in it, but that's my choice. Same as these people that buy a house that has, like maybe on Kiln Creek, where they have a garage and a parking space outside. It's up to them how they use that garage. Not up to us to tell them.
through you, Mr. Chair, we've just looked at photographs. They do have garages in those units. that
Okay,
you
I
were
thought
talking
so,
about.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, how you use it, and I can understand, yeah, it's very easy to use them for storage and not be able to put a car in it, but, I would hope the developer would make the garage big enough that you could put a good-sized SUV in and still be able to exit it, but, I guess that's buyer beware too. Anyway, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Oops. Warden Rolston?
Well, we've had many discussions over parking, and the bottom line for me is the regulations that we have don't work. They cause problems. So we can either just merrily go on our way and hope that they work better, or we can do something about it, whether any other municipality has or not. And when this motion is finished, if it's necessary, I will make a motion to review the parking requirements for single unit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Go ahead, Rachel.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be bringing, or staff are going to be bringing a report on parking standards. So that review would include dwelling units outside of these townhouses. So you'll have an opportunity at that point to discuss all the parking requirements.
So I don't have to make a motion, it's coming anyway.
Councilor Musa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when we talk about single dwelling, we're talking about 50 feet frontage, not 20 feet. Right, John? If you have a single unit, your frontage have to be 50 feet. So you could put as many parking as you want. Now with townhouses, we're talking about somewhere 18 to 20 feet frontage on the road. So if you want to add parking, you're not, you don't have the room to do it. So we cannot compare single unit dwelling to to townhouses. There's no comparison there. Because some single unit have 60 feet frontage on the road.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So with the townhouse, really you're right, they're much narrower lots.
Yeah.
So the only option is to have a deeper lot.
Yeah.
So you have a longer
So you cannot go wider, but with a single unit, you could put five parking lot if you need it. So it's totally different. So we cannot compare those to those. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. So now I'm just trying to figure out where we are.
Going to the vote on the amendment.
So we're voting on the motion, two spaces?
It's a motion to amend the staff recommendations in the report.
Okay.
It is a motion. Well, it's a motion to amend the recommendation in the report.
So it's a motion.
Yeah, it's a motion. But this is a different one.
We did the first one, the warden brought
We did the
forward.
wardens.
We have this
Now
one
we're
to do
doing
now.
Counselor Garden Coles.
This one says 2 spaces in front of, outside the house, not including the garage.
Everybody understands that? Nobody left to speak. Let's go to the vote. And the motion is passed by a vote of 7-5. With Councilors McPhee, Deputy Warden Dixon, Councilor Marion, Councilor Perry, and Public Member 2, which be Pam, voting nay. Thank you. So now we have the recommended motion on the screen. Take a few seconds to reread it.
As amended.
Okay.
Warden Rolston.
All right. I move the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council directs staff to include the amendments to the land use bylaw parking requirements for townhomes as outlined in the staff report as dated February the 4th, 2026, as amended. In
February
today's meeting.
17th.
By committee,
February 17th.
February 17th, into the current application submitted by Arkham Developments Limited.
It's moved in second. Councilor Perry.
Again, just for the record, I will not be supporting this motion. I do not believe we should be telling people how to live their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Nobody left to speak. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed by a vote to 8-4 with Councilor McPhee, Deputy Warden Dixon, Councilor Perry, and Public Member Pam Harvey voting nay. Thank you, Rachel, for that report. Next item on the agenda is Plan 25-010, Sunny Point Farms, a request to amend the land use bylaw. And Leanne, you can begin when you're ready. You want me to switch them up?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So this is the second presentation coming forward from Philip Verrill of Sunny Point Farms. And the request is to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to allow for a smaller setback for intensive livestock operation in the rural use north zone where the property is in a common ownership. So their request was to reduce the current setback, which is 45 meters, to 2 meters. Or they indicated what is permitted under the National Building Code where the adjacent property is in a common ownership. So currently, there are regulations for intensive livestock operations where they're permitted in our rural zones. And there are specific regulations for those zones. So in the general provisions, it's a 45-meter setback from any public road, private road, or right-of-way easement. And then in the agricultural reserve zone specifically, it has a clause that allows for a 10-meter setback if the adjoining property is in a common ownership. That regulation does not apply in the rural use or rural use north zone, hence the request for the amendment. As part of the application, there is a required amendment to the municipal planning strategy, policy AR22, just to include the rural use north zone in that policy. So in terms of the proposed amendments, the 45-meter is subject to change to 46. That was just an inconsistency, so to make it consistent with the other setback. And then adding a clause in the rural use north zone, the 46-meter minimum setback may be reduced to 10 meters if the adjoining property is in a common ownership, subject to spatial separation requirements of the National Building Code. So the proposed amendments are larger than what the applicant had originally proposed. However, after discussion with the building officials, as well as some of the potential negative impacts such as odor, noise, the larger 10-meter setback is what's being proposed. The applicant is aware of the change, but they're indicated that whatever is required under the building code, and to obtain a 2-meter setback under the building code with limiting distances is quite a challenge after discussion with our building officials. So that 10 meters is what's being proposed, which is also consistent, with what's in the agricultural reserve. And the proposed amendment to the municipal planning strategy is to add the rural use north zone, which has permitted, can be reduced from the 46 meters. For citizen engagement, there was a public information meeting held for this application. There were 2 counselors, or 5 members of public, 2 counselors, and the applicants from the 2 applications that were being presented, and 1 member of the public. And these are not site-specific applications or amendments, so questionnaires will not be mailed. So staff are recommending the minimum setback be reduced in the rural use north zone for an intensive livestock operation to 10 meters where the adjacent property is in a common ownership subject to the spatial separation requirements under the National Building Code. And we are at first reading of the amendments, and the recommendation and recommended motion are presented. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Leanne, for the report. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, the problem is, if we make it 10 meters, then it's 10 meters on each side of the property line, so now it's 20 meters. So I guess I don't really see the point. If the landowner owns both parcels, why should he or she have to go through a consolidation thing in order to be able to expand his farming operation? Many farms are made up of multiple PIDs. So, you know, I would have been prepared to look at a smaller setback than 10 meters, number one. Number two, what does this do? I've read through this, and the issue that I had in my area was zoned agricultural reserve, and the problem arose because the land was split by a public road, and this doesn't do anything to address that. So I assume that's still going to be looked at in the plan review. And so, you know, I would have liked us to have been a little more forgiving to our farmers who are are farming their land. It's, agricultural land. They're looking to expand their businesses, and if they have 2 plots of land and they wish to have, a building on each one, and I know you can say, well, it might be sold down the road for something else, but when you buy a property next to an existing farm or an existing business or whatever, then you know what's there when you buy the land and where it's located. So I guess from my point, I would have liked to have seen us attempt to accommodate Mr. Vrew in his request, as opposed to offering him something which was 5 times more setback than what he requested to adequately address what he needed to do on his farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Musa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Leanne, how much is the setback now from other properties? Like if you don't own the property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, for an intensive livestock, it's currently 45
45
from the
meters?
property line, from meters, yeah.
45 meters, so if the owner own a right of way or 60 feet from another property, so, you know what I mean? Like, if he have a narrow sliver that's go into other big property, but there's another property that's closer to 45 meter from where he want to put his farm, what's gonna happen there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure. I
Okay,
understand your
you
question.
own this big farm, and you own a narrow sliver of land that's go to a bigger property that you own, but somebody else own property is less 45 meter less away from the property, then what happened there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, under the regulations, it has to be 45 meters.
If
for
it's
a
a
new
so
building or
that
if someone moves a
don't
property line.
reduce the effect on other properties, so, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the proposed amendments for 10 meters is only if it's in a common ownership, if the
okay,
neighboring properties.
but if the property next door that he owns is less than 45 meter from another property, so his farm is gonna be less than 45 meter from somebody's property there. The PID, like, he owned the PID in between 2 properties. You got it, John? I don't know if you can explain it better, so.
I think I do. So you're talking about a situation where the farmer owns 2 properties facing onto a street, and in between them, there's like a flag lot or something, so that there's a 20-foot pole that comes down between his 2
No,
properties.
the other way. He owned the property and the flag lot and another
Oh, I
property
see,
adjoining
I
on the
see.
street, so
And
his
so-
farm, if he reduce it to 2 meter or 10 meter, he's gonna be less than 45 meter from that property, so what happened there? We have to amend this, like, we cannot make it broad, because he could be owning like a 60 feet right of way to another property, and another property is less than 45 meter from that farm, so. I know this is not the situation, but we're making it broad, so
Yeah.
it could happen somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that is a theoretical one. I don't know of any situations like that, but you're right, it could happen, I guess.
So can we amend it that still in effect, have to be 45 meter from any other property in different ownership? Why no? We have a law now. We cannot change it to hurt people.
You could. I prefer not to do it on the fly here. If you want us to rethink that, then I would just send the report back and
Well, we have to rethink that, because already now you cannot have an intensive farming less than 45 meter from a property. So if I own 60 feet and the other property is less than 45 meter away, what we're doing here? So that defeat the purpose.
Okay.
Because we have 2 laws that contradict itself. Like, if you own 2 properties and you're allowed to do 2 meters, but on the other side, you have to be away from any other property 45 meters, so if that goes in effect, I'm happy with it, but if not, we cannot, I'm not in favor of that.
Is that all, Counselor?
Yeah, thank you.
Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm not gonna reiterate, or I'm not gonna repeat what the warden has said. I totally agree with it. When we went through this zoning process back there, for the unzoned areas back some time ago, and it was planned that parts of the municipality would go AR's agricultural zones. We voted that down and we decided to go with rural use zone. Now we find out a lot of the times that a lot of this stuff from the AR has filtered into the RU2. I mean, was that, for lack of a better word, buried in the lines below, or what? Because there's a lot of people like who automatically think we didn't vote for this AR, this agricultural zone. So why are we privy to a lot of the rules that are taking place for it?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take that one. No, it certainly wasn't buried. The primary difference is that the AR zone restricts other land uses, but the RU2 zone allows agricultural land uses. So, of course, there are regulations associated with agricultural uses in the RU2 zone. And I don't remember exactly in what form we explained that during the plan review, but it was certainly presented as part of the regulation package. And it makes sense to me, like you've got a zone that permits these uses, intensive livestock operations. You know, there are large setbacks associated with those for adjoining residential uses. It's there to protect people from new intensive livestock and from locating too close to one if they're building a house.
Well, I'll agree with you on one thing. It may not have been clear, because it sure wasn't clear, because a lot of people have said to me, why are we following this? We went to the RU2, not the agricultural. Now we find things from the agricultural filtering through to RU2, which we're not clear to, at least, and I'll admit it to myself, because there's a lot of things jumping out now, and it may not have been buried, but it could be like that omnibus bill. There's so many things in between there that you don't always read in the province. So a lot of people are questioning that and are somewhat upset. So, and I'll probably address that further down this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston?
Yes, thank you. This may be another one for the history books. I completely agree with Councillor Rhino. And when the decision was made to remove the agricultural zoning from the package for the rural use, that was made fairly late in the process. And I don't believe that we did understand that all these things were going to be put in. I certainly didn't. Prior to the zoning being brought into the formerly unzoned area, there would have been no restrictions such as this. Mr. Vrew had wanted to build on his farm, on his plots of land that he owned. He was free to do it. And my assumption would have been, when we decided to forego agricultural zoning in that area, that that would not have changed. So, you know, if Councillor Rhino missed it, so did I. And I can tell you, if Councillor Rhino and I missed it, so did the public. So we had, for hundreds of years, existed in the rural area without any zoning. And neighbors managed. Were there ever a few disagreements if a farmer put his manure pile too close to the line? I'm sure there were, but it got worked through. And I just think that this almost looks like implementing some of the agricultural zone regulations through the back door, and I don't like it. So I have been quite prepared not to revisit agricultural zoning when we go to the plan review. But we might have to review some of the definitions of the RU2 zone, because I think they are more restrictive than we intended them to be. And if the director remembers, when we went down this road that we were forced down, the motion of council at the time was the least restrictive zoning that we could put in place that would be acceptable to the province. That was the direction. This is not the least restrictive zoning that could have been put in place. And this is only in the RU2 zone. This doesn't affect other places. This is just the RU2 zone. So I concur 100% with Councillor Rhino. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. What is your wish, committee? Do you have a motion? Warden Rolston?
Well, through you to staff, what are our options here? Like, what do we have to do to get rid of this minimum setback in the RU2 zone to what we thought it was?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, you can get rid of it if you want or reduce it to 2 or 3, but I think you're setting landowners up for a false expectation, because then when they come in to talk to a building official, they're gonna find out they still need that 10-meter setback from a property line, or they're limiting distance principle. So if there's no property line, they still have to have a setback between buildings. In this case, they measure to a property line. They're still gonna have that problem. So even if you reduce your regulation in the land use bylaw, they're still gonna run into that. So, our thought was just to make them the same so that nobody has any false expectation about what they're gonna be permitted to do.
So if we were to pass the recommended motion as it is now, could we look at, during the plan review, removing this type of restriction from the RU2 zone?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, you could. They're your regulations, so you can change them.
And could we also at that time look at reducing the setbacks for adjacent lots owned by the same owner?
Yes, you could.
But we can't do that now.
Well, it's the same thing. You could do that now. You could do that during the plan review, but you're still gonna have the building code there. That's not gonna change. We don't get to set that. That's a provincial thing. So that minimum limiting distance is still gonna be there. And as we understand it, based on our conversations
But
with our
we
building
have-
officials, it's 10 meters.
We have zones all over the place where buildings aren't 10 meters from the
Right.
property line.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this has to do, Leanne probably knows more because she had more recent conversation, but it has to do with the size of the building, the type of material and so on that,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not a building official, so I can't speak specifically, but it does, the limiting distance is not a number in the building code. It's based on the size, scale, number of openings of a building that's either being built, or if you're moving a property line, that's something the building officials would look at. So there's not a specific number, so it could be 2 meters, but if someone comes in for a building permit and depending on the size of the building, how many unobstructed openings, it could be much higher than that. So you don't necessarily know until you actually submit the plans and the building officials review it. So it varies.
but in our conversations with the building official, 10 meters sounded like a reasonable expectation for this type of structure.
Right.
So, refresh me again. Prior to the introduction of zoning, what would have happened if Mr. Rue had wanted to build what he wants to build?
Well, he would have had to come in and talk to a building official, and depending on the size, those other factors, material, openings, all those factors, a limiting distance would have been established. And it probably would have been at least 10 meters, but who knows?
But it could have been less.
Possible. I mean, yeah, if you had no openings and you had a non-flammable material and, all those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Rhino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, I'd like to get some clarification. Now, from what I'm hearing, we could change it to anything, but the building code overrides that. Now, and I believe, when John was talking, I was saying the building code is a minimum 10 meters. Now, when I heard, excuse me, I can't remember your name, but anyway, Leanne, did I hear right that you said that it's not a number, it could be anything?
Yeah.
So where did we get this 10 meters from?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, in conversation with the building officials as to what would a typical or reasonable number be that they would see with a structure like this.
Well, isn't reasonable in the eye of the beholder? Because if it's not in there 10 meters strictly in there on paper, and then it's left to the building, like, to me, we should be able to move that for a property that's owned by the same person to 2 meters or whatever. It doesn't make any, I'm hearing it's definitely 10 meters, and then I'm hearing, no, it's not, it's just a number. So there's a point of confusion there, and I do think that we could be able to move that for adjacent people that own adjacent abutting properties could move that to 2 meters. Like, because if he does combine that, those buildings could be wherever. So, yeah, I'm very confused on this.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my apology for confusing that. Leanne's right, there isn't a set number. It's a calculation that they do at the time of building permit application. But 10 meters seemed to be a reasonable number after discussing it with them. And again, I guess my concern would be setting up false expectations that, you put a 2 meter in your bylaw and then somebody comes in for a permit with that expectation and they're at 20 meters or who knows what. It's just, 10 meters seemed to be a reasonable compromise, close to what would be a minimum under the building code.
I'm still confused. I'll be honest with you, I'm still confused because it's a number, but it's not a number, but it's a number, and like this back and forth. I don't see why an adjacent property can't be used and give Sunny Point Farms the 2 meters and away we go. Look, I mean, and this is, like I say, it's another thing that kind of an omnibus bill that we're not aware of what's going on until it's time to imply the rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston?
I would just simply submit the same risks exists if we say 10 meters. Can say 10 meters in our bylaw, and according to whatever formula they use, it could turn into 20 meters or more. So I don't feel we'd be setting up any false expectations any more by 2 meters than we would by 10 meters. So anyway, those are my concerns, but I would think that we could make that clear. We could say 2 meters subject to building code requirements or something like that. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Marion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it's a discussion that could probably go on for some time. I'm kind of looking at the motion where, it kind of looks like what this is really leading to for a next step would be scheduling a public hearing. And I'm thinking out loud that perhaps with the discussion today and weighing in the feedback from a public hearing, would it not be possible to, in that totality, to perhaps make some changes to this? So for that reason, I'm going to advance the motion. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give first reading to amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to reduce the minimum setback requirement for intensive livestock operations in the rural use north RU2 zone and authorize staff to schedule a public hearing.
And through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, so that's locked in now. If that motion passes, that's what you're going to be considering at a public hearing. You wouldn't have the opportunity to change that other than at council this month before you actually give it first reading. But once you give those amendments first reading, you're kind of locked in with that number.
Okay. For that reason,
We have a second to the motion? Okay, it's moved in second. Warden Rolston?
Speaking to the motion is unclear because the motion does not reflect what we're reducing the minimum setbacks to. It doesn't say. To those in the report, to those at the discussion, just says reduce them. So I don't think the motion gives clear direction. It just simply says, reduce the minimum setback. Should it not at least say reduce, should it not at least say that? And it doesn't. So I'm going to propose an amendment to the motion, which says, amend the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw to reduce the minimum setback requirement for intensive livestock operations in the rural use north RU2 zone to 2 meters. Subject to building code, which will be subject to building code requirements. That's just a given.
So moved to second. Any comments from staff on that change? Councilor Musa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It doesn't say if the property owner is a co-owner, if the owner owns the next property. That's in general?
Has to be an adjacent property.
It doesn't say anything there. It said in RU2 zone. So,
It should say to reduce the minimum setback requirement as outlined in the report with an amendment to make it 2 meters as opposed to 10.
For adjacent properties,
So that is in the report. The report talked about it,
but it's not in the motion.
but if you say as outlined in the report with an amendment to make it 2 meters instead of 10, then that is for adjacent property owners, because that's what the report's about.
Any comments from staff on,
All you have to do is add the words for adjacent property in the motion. That's all.
So I guess I would say this, Mr. Chair. Yes, a specific motion is always better than a general one, but in a case like this, there are draft amendments in the staff report, so that's what we would go back to in terms of fulfilling the motion. So if you want to change the draft as suggested by the warden, then that's the way to do it, just to add it to the motion.
Still on?
no? Councilor Perry?
I'm not finished yet, sorry.
Oh, you're still,
Yeah, he's still on, he's still on.
okay.
So just one question. By passing this motion, that will not overrule our original bylaw that any other property should be 45 meter?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this would only be for adjoining property owners.
Yeah, but the other rule will be gone. Like if somebody owned property less than 45 meters, I know it's not the point there with Sunny Farm, but with other properties, if some other property is less than 45 meter, will that overrule the other one or will still in effect?
I think it would. I should look at the provision itself, but
Sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
So if you own two properties and you wanna make the setback 2 meters, but that 2 meter will put you 45 meter, less than 45 meter from another property, which bylaw will take over? Like which one will rule the other? Because we have a bylaws that say 45 meter from any property, and I don't understand that, so I don't know how it works, but we have two bylaws that contradict themselves.
I don't understand his question.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Councillor Musa, this is the example you were giving earlier. If you have a property that's less than 45 meters away from a property that's co-owned. So is it a matter of putting something in this language that says, in no instances shall you build,
Less than 45 meters from
From another property
non-owned
owner.
property, yeah.
Right.
So that law should be there. Like,
I think
because-
that's the amendment that needs to have.
Because we have in a rural area, RU2 zone, the property that less than quarter an acre. So if you own a quarter an acre and a big farm, you're gonna affect the property on the other side. So,
Right.
I mean, it's good to allow farmer to expand, but it's not good to
So I
put
think
other residents in.
I think in that instance, you would, because this motion is on the floor, amended? You would make an amendment to this motion to say,
Well, the amendment is on the floor.
Yeah, we
so
should vote
you
on
need
the
to do the same as you did last time. You need to amend it with the warden's recommendation to go to 2 meters. And then if it's not covered in our other bylaw, you need to put in an amendment that says, in no instance shall an intensive livestock be
less than 45
less than
meters.
45 meters from another property line.
Actually, it's not an amendment on the floor. I moved the motion and changed the word.
Right. So it would be an amendment to this motion.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
Craig made the motion?
I would like to amend
Oh,
the.
yeah, you amended it.
I amended it.
You amended it, yeah.
So after this amendment gets dealt with, then you could put another amendment on the floor. Does that work, planners?
Yep.
Okay.
Are we clear so far?
Could we repeat the amended motion?
It's just an amendment so far.
Councilor Rhino?
Well, this must be a cloudy day, because I am confused, because what is the amendment? Is not this motion there was moved by the warden? No? Okay, so what the move by the warden was to revert to a,
To amend it to state that the minimum setback would be 2 meters.
okay, all right, that's a little bit clear. But I do believe it should say adjoining properties that are owned by the same person. And why I say that is because if we don't put adjoining properties in there, I want to protect also, I want to protect the farmer's rights, but I also have to protect the residents' rights, in which if you have a resident that's here and a farmer buys a piece of land next to them, does that mean if that motion passes at 2 meters that they can build a livestock operation within 2 meters of the boundary line? Is that what it means? Because that's where it has to say adjoining, who the person that owns adjoining properties, because we have to protect who's there first. It's kind of the same thing to me. Can you clarify that, staff?
The motion, your changes. So that was what was proposed to be added by staff, the C. So that would reduce it to 10 meters to, if the adjoining property is in common ownership. So I think, just my reading of that, I think that trumps A, which says, which Councillor Musa was talking about, so the 46 meters from all lines in any public road, private right-of-way easement.
So then if I can, to the director, then if we move that amendment to say the same as that up there, to a 2 meter zone if adjoining property owners are in common ownership, subject to separation requirements, because I do believe the amendment has to say that if I am to support it. Because I want to protect from a new farm coming in, plunking in there and being 2 meters from a property that, and then bang, we've got troubles all over again.
Right?
I wonder if the mover would accept that, or because if it's an amendment, we got to amend the amendment. In what? So you want to clarify that so we're all,
With the agreement of the seconder, the amendment to the motion would reflect the wording in item E on the screen with the change from 10 meters to 2 meters. And when the subject in common ownership, yes, that was my intent, I just didn't.
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Chair, that deals with the first issue. It doesn't deal with Councillor Moose's issue, which is if a property owner owns two properties and one of them is just a pole leading to a property in behind, you could jump over that and still be within that 46 meters on, it's not an adjoining property to where the livestock operation is, but it's within 46 meters. I think that was the concern expressed there. To deal with that, I think you would need another amendment. Which I don't really want to build on the fly here. Yeah.
How much is this gonna hold Mr. Brew up if it goes back?
Go ahead, CEO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, policy on the fly is always a really bad idea. I'm wondering if through the process we could bring, I think we have a common feel for what council wants. So instead of wordsmithing, if you want to deal with your motions to say 2 meters instead of 10, protect other property owners, we can probably do some wording for council next week when you actually, and have it in your committee report what that wording has been changed to. I know that doesn't allow the two public members to weigh in on the final wording, but I would be much more relaxed if we weren't doing policy bylaw changes on the fly.
so that would mean then we could move the amendment as talked about, and then we could amend it again at council night to reflect after we get the information on council, what Councilor Musa brought up?
I would deal with your amendment, but in very generality, so to change that 10 meters to 2,
Right,
and then
common
make-
ownership,
make another amendment to add language that protects other neighbors that are less than 46 meters away. And move those two things, push it all to committee, but we'll figure out the wording, to council. We'll figure out the wording by Wednesday next week and have it clear on your committee report what that wording looks like. We don't all need to wordsmith things here today.
And if we don't like it, you can change it. We can change it.
Councilor Rhino, you good with that?
I'm gonna leave it, I don't know if I'm completely good on it now, but
Well,
it'll take some time to filter.
Councilor Perry, you've been waiting for a while, so I'm gonna give you, oops, just a minute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like, there's been a lot of talk between 10 and 2 and 20 and all. None of that distance matters. Everything is subject to the separation requirements of the building code upon the building that plan that goes out. So it really, putting a number in just gives anybody and any applicant a false sense of a distance, because once it's evaluated under the building code, it's gonna be moved back as per the building code. So I don't understand why we're even having the argument over 10 meters or 2 meters, because I would have really have liked to have had the building officials input here as well. You know, the likelihood of the majority of buildings falling within a certain distance. If it's a 1% likelihood that they'll fall within 2 meters, if it's a 50% likelihood they'll fall within 10 meters, according to the building code, it really doesn't matter. It's plan by plan. So I really think the minimum setback distance of common ownership we really don't have a say in it, because it comes down to the National Building Code, right? And I would hate for anybody in the public, in the RU2 zone or the agricultural zone, to look at our bylaws and think, oh, I can get within 2 meters, and then constantly come in here and be like, well, you're building this massive building, and it's gonna put you 10, 15, 20, 25 meters away based on the building code. I just don't think it gives people a clear picture if we tie it more to the National Building Code based upon the design of the building, then they come in with their plan and then understand what that distance becomes. Because putting an arbitrary number might be great, but we're still subject to the National Building Code. So to me, this is just way too messy. I think it needs to go back, get cleaned up, and then come back to us with all this stuff. Because I agree with the CAO, policy on the fly is never a good idea. We meet again next month, and I believe we can have this flushed out by staff and get the building officials' input on the National Building Code, because that's the one piece we don't have in this report that governs the distance every time and what the likelihood of the proper distance should be. So I just don't see us doing this on the fly as a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McPhee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, Councillor Perry just made my point. That's exactly what I was thinking, and I agree with the CIO. We can't be just throwing numbers around and trying to make policy right now. That's not the way to do it. I'm glad I finally figured out what Councillor Musa was speaking of, and I agree with him. That is certainly a good catch there, that could be a big problem. And as far as putting a number on it, yeah, let's make it 50 centimeters then, because the number doesn't matter. You can make it 0 centimeters. You can build right on the line, except if we tell you you can't. So why bother putting a number in there at all? I think we're hung up on something that doesn't matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston?
Well, I believe that the number does matter because it will give the public the knowledge that that is the minimum from the line that they can build regardless of what the building code says, which is already the case now with the number that's in place now. All of these numbers that we use they're subject to the National Building Code. But I just think it's there to tell them that that is the minimum distance from the line, subject to the National Building Code. And I just feel with adjacent landowners that 2 meters is more reasonable than the 10 meters suggested by staff. That's the only meaning of having a number there. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Counselor Perry?
Thank you. And I can agree that the warden wants to put a number in, and I get it. But if the likelihood of a building ever being approved at 2 meters is less than 3%, right? Because we don't know. We don't know if it's 60%, 70%, we don't know. So I think until we start to know and understand the likelihood of buildings of certain sizes and have some of the building code discussion here come from our building officials, the number really doesn't matter until that conversation's had. Because if people see a number of 2 meters and they're gonna think they can build 2 meters, and then they come in and they're told they're not, they're gonna be upset. If you tell them 10 meters and they're allowed to go to 8, or they have to go back to 25, they're gonna be upset. So no matter what it is, by putting a number in there, we are setting ourselves up to fail because we don't know if that's the real number that's possible.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston?
The problem that I see being that the building officials will be unable to answer that because every application will be different for a different building, for a different use, for a different size. And that's what it relies to, and that's why it says, subject to spatial separation requirements of the National Building Code. So I guess that's the concern. They won't be able to give us a 1%, 2%, 50% because it all is dependent on what the request for a building permit is. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden.
Nobody left to speak.
Nobody left to speak. So Shirley, can you tell me where we are in this?
We're voting on the amendment in E.
Okay, could you read the amendment? E, we're voting on E,
Except
reducing
it's 2 instead of.
instead of 10. Okay, everybody understands that? We're looking at E on the screen. And we take out the 10 meters and stick in the 2.
Mr. Chair, just to add a little more confusion, it says E on the screen, but that's a typo. In the staff report, it's C. And it should be C.
Okay. Motion C, everybody understands where we are?
Yes.
A, B. Okay,
Nobody left to
sorry.
speak, let's go to the vote.
What's the amendment?
And it had passed with a vote of 7-5 with Counselor McPhee, Counselor Merriam, Counselor Musa, Counselor Perry, and Counselor Tingley voting nay. So are we finished that?
Not quite. No.
Okay. Counselor Musa,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to amend the motion to say that in no instance that building should be less than 46 meter from any property in different ownership.
Second. Everybody heard the amendment? Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote. Different ownership.
No instance shall you be able to construct within 46 meters of someone else.
Trying to not.
Wasn't that already captured in the original?
No.
Oh, okay.
Waiting for 2. Waiting for 1. And the motion is passed. 12-0.
Now we have to do the motion.
Do you have it that you could read it, or?
As amended.
Okay.
Didn't Gregory put that motion on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Motion, it's already on the floor.
So now we have to vote on the motion as
As
amended.
amended.
Yes.
Okay.
No, we're good.
Craig, this motion's already on the floor.
Counselor Garden Cole.
Do you want me to make the motion?
That's already.
No, it's already done.
Let's just go.
Nobody wishing to speak, so we'll vote on the amended motion. And the motion is passed 9-3 with Counselor McPhee, Counselor Perry, and Counselor Tingley voting nay. Thank you, staff. Thanks, Leanne. I apologize for my confusion to the group.
Well, we're well past our break time.
We're well past our break time, but we'll take a 10-minute break and come back at 4:10.
Has to be.
I just couldn't pick it on Saturday.
I just need to get it clear. And I would shovel, but we know how that went last July.
Okay.
We're live.
Council, committee, a question? Item number 25 and item number 27 can be put off until next month, and we'll do the 26 today. Based on time, what is your wish?
Well, so you mean item 25?
At 27.
Well, I'd like to put 27 to bed sooner rather than later myself.
Do we have enough time?
You also have a council meeting. We're here, but you have a council meeting after this as well.
We still have the in-camera sessions.
You said 25 and 27?
Council Perry?
I was gonna say I'd be fine with doing 25 and 27 because I know 27 is gonna take time. And it's already, you know, we're 15 minutes from the time of adjournment for today's activities, and we haven't even touched I&O as well. And there's plenty of things to go on, so if it's not pressing, we can, I would like to see them both go so we can try and get back on some resemblance of a time schedule here. Because we do have the council meeting and in-camera stuff after this as well. I don't want to be here till 7:30, 8 o'clock tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden Rolston?
Thank you. My question would be to go through the agendas and if we don't make it through, we do it Thursday night ahead of budget. Because Thursday night is generally set aside for overflow from committee. So I don't know how late folks are planning to be here, how much time has been allocated for the in-camera or anything like that, but that would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Rhino?
Well, write this down in your books. I agree with the warden. I do believe that, for me, 25, we can deal with that. 27, I think, has to be put to bed. But we've always set aside Thursday night as an overflow from executive committee. And I do think we have to start using that because this is gonna be we may not get out of here until 8 o'clock tonight if we follow through with everything that was put on the agendas tonight. And I do believe that this is why it was created. We're all gonna be here on Thursday night anyway for budget. So if we continue on, do the executive committee, finish it on Thursday night, and then whatever time's remaining, then use that for budget. If there's no time remaining, there's no pressing issue to have this budget passed, boom, because I can remember budgets not being passed almost to July. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. CAO?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, just a nuance. Thursday night is not a council meeting, so we couldn't do your Thursday night stuff in camera unless I believe we'd have to advertise a special council meeting. So you'd have to bring PAC back Thursday night because there's only one item left in executive committee, which is what Thursday night's intended to be. And that's Jesse's item, and that's about a 30-second report to give to you. Now, how much you want to talk about it is up to you. So, so you'd have to be, if you're going to move this to Thursday night, any part of this, it would have to be PAC Thursday night.
Warden Rolston?
Would you believe I forgot what I was gonna say?
It's okay.
No, yeah, maybe we could go in camera, get that is there anything in the in-camera council stuff that could be deferred? That we could do next Wednesday night at council anyway? Okay, So why not go in, why not pause the committee meeting? Well, that doesn't help the public members of PAC any though. I was gonna say, go in, deal with those, and then if we're not at the hour of adjournment, go on with the PAC. So maybe we just go as far as we can with PAC while the public members are here and hope they don't have to come back again. I don't know, thank you.
Is that agreeable with everybody? Continue?
When are we gonna do, I know.
We can do that.
Right at the very end of your committee.
Yeah,
We can do that Thursday night if we have to,
Yes, you could.
yeah.
Counselor Perry?
Mr. Chair, are we continuing to the time of adjournment and then going into, our scheduled next meeting? Is that where we're going with? Because we adjourn here at 4:30 and then our other one starts at 4:45. So, for our policy meeting and in camera.
We just had a break. We can go to 4:45.
CAO?
Through you, Madam, or Mr. Chair, I think most of your council stuff could be deferred to next month, but most of them could be deferred to next Wednesday, except for Alana's. Right. Right, that one that needs to happen today, but the rest of them could be deferred to Wednesday night next week, council, I think.
My question is, are we then gonna be here till 11 o'clock on council night to fit everything else in? Because like, are we just robbing Peter to pay Paul, or, I just don't understand.
Anything else, CAO?
No.
Warden Rolson?
Well, my comment would be, we just came back from a break. I don't think we need another break at 4:30. I think we could run through until 4:45 and then switch to council and see where we get.
Is that agreed? Okay, we'll continue with it. Next item is the bylaw 1200-1, an amendment to bylaw P 1200 lot grading and drainage. Proposed amendments for initial consideration. Debbie, you can start when you're ready. I know it's sudden.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
All right. So every 5 years, the Planning and Development Department reviews our bylaws and policies. So we've come to the lot grading and drainage bylaw, and we've identified a few things that should be amended. So one is the definition of and the use of the word applicant has been changed to owner, because it's the owner of the land who ultimately is responsible for ensuring the completion of lot grading and drainage requirements and not the person who actually applies for it. We've added a definition of accessory structure, and a new provision has been proposed to be added to the bylaw that will allow people to do small additions to their homes without requiring a lot grading and drainage permit, and that's for 55 square meters and less. And the building officials were finding that a lot of people are applying for porches and that, especially on helical piles, and that there wasn't a need for the lot grading drainage permit. We've also have some other minor amendments to the bylaw. Maybe you can, there's a marked up version and an unmarked up version there for Planning Advisory Committee to look at. We received an email recently from a resident on Lorne Court in Elmsdale requesting amendments to bylaw P1200 as well. The resident would like to construct a larger garage, larger than 55 square meters, without having to apply for a lot grading permit. I don't have the exact measurement of the garage. They didn't actually make the application, so that wasn't available to me. The email suggests that the development officers be given the authority to decide when a lot grading permit is required. However, we've discussed it in the past during previous PAC meetings that the development officers are not engineers and they don't have the qualifications necessary to determine when a lot grading permit is required. It's something that an engineer would have to make this determination on, and they would have to have a set of pre-identified requirements. Staff also cautioned that Lorna Court, it's in the Pine Hill area of Elmsdale, and this area has had flooding and drainage issues in the past. We wouldn't want to make things worse in that area. So the recommendation is that first reading be given to the bylaw P1200-1, lock grading and drainage, a bylaw to amend bylaw P1200, lock grading and drainage. And the recommended motion is below, and there is an alternative motion if PAC wants staff to go back and see if we can figure something out with the property on Lauren Court or to investigate further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Debbie. Warden Rolston.
That seems fairly straightforward to me. So I'm going to move that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council give first reading to bylaw P-1200-1, a bylaw to amend bylaw P-1200, lot grading and drainage bylaw.
It's moved in second. On before the motion, Councilor Rhino.
Yes, point of clarification, and to make, I guess for making sure that this does not pertain to the RU2 zone, because we went through this process quite some time ago across the municipality and it was voted down. So I just want to make sure that this only obtains to this area.
So you, Mr. Chair, this only pertains to where there's municipal services available.
Thank you, thank you.
Nobody left to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the 2026-2027 plan review. And this is yours, Debbie, so you can begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff are seeking authorization to initiate the community consultation process for the plan review. Community engagement will include community meetings, surveys, and newsletters. The goal of the community engagement process is to ensure that all East Hants residents can contribute their knowledge, their aspirations, and their perspective to the official community plan. So in front of you have a table just outlining our engagement process. So the first and most significant one is our visioning process. And it is combined with a whole bunch of different engagement types, and this will be done this spring. So we're looking at East Hants Plan Review Survey, we're looking at a visual preference survey, we're looking at community visioning meetings, and those will be open houses, facilitated discussions, and those will be held in the corridor, Mount Uniacke, Rawdon, and Maitland, and those dates have been added to Council Chambers Online. Municipal visioning with municipal departments, and we've set up those meetings, developer stakeholder meeting. We're going to try to meet with the East Hants Chamber of Commerce, meetings with adjoining municipalities, and with Nova Scotia Public Works and our Agriculture Advisory Committee. So all of this is to be done in the spring. Once we've collected all this information, we'll combine it to create objectives and planning principles, and we'll do community check-in meetings on what we've heard in October of 2026. And we'll meet in the same locations again. And then from that, we'll go on to draft our planning documents. And once those planning documents are done, we are looking at April of 2027 to have public meetings again to present those draft planning documents and stakeholder meetings again. And then in October of 2027, we hope to finalize the process, and we'll do our statutory approval process, which will be a public open house and a public hearing here at the Lloyd E. Matheson Center. So visioning basically allows the community to envision the overall future of the community. It allows residents to have a voice in what their community looks like and what their goals and objections are. So once we hear all of this, we'll come up with a vision statement and guiding principles, and then we'll present what we heard to Planning Advisory Committee, hopefully in July, about what we heard. And then we also will have to have additional meetings for the secondary plan for the Grand Lake Corn Settlement Growth Reserve Area, but that will be determined once we've hired the consultant and gets it approved through the budgeting process. Plan review surveys. So the surveys will be available online, and that's where we're going to have them hosted. But you will be able to have a hard copy of the survey for anybody who wants to have one. And As I said, the results of the survey will be part of what we heard. And recommendation is that staff be authorized to begin the community engagement as outlined in this report. And the recommended motion is below.
Motion before you, committee. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Just looking in my calendar and trying to refresh my brain here. How many of these community engagement meetings in the community are we planning?
4, so we're looking at Maitland, Rawdon, Mount Uniacke, and the corridor. And we're looking at April and Shirley, I don't have them listed. Oh, May, yeah, sorry, I apologize, May.
Refresh my mind. What did we decide we were going to have way more meetings for?
Transit.
Transit, okay. I'm just a little concerned at Rawdon and Maitland, and I understand that that's 2 meetings in the rural area, but that's a long way for folks to travel to get to a meeting, from Walton to get to either Maitland or Rawdon. And I don't think you're going to get good turnout if you only have a meeting in Maitland and a meeting in Rawdon. I think you've got to have somewhere closer to Walton, and, you know, whether that's Kennecook or Knoll or what it looks like, I don't know. But I do think, I don't know what Councillor Rhino thinks, but I do think you should have at least one more in the rural area, and that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I was just going through my notes too to see that, and I feel like there should be one more in the corridor area. I just wish that when we have these community meetings where we want the community to get engaged, that they were a little more personal, like sometimes I envy the connection that the rural area has with their communities. And I know that I feel like we need, if we're going to have that in the corridor area, we need to kind of foster it. Is there any chance we could have, instead of having a meeting here, we could have it, say, staggered, like 2 meetings down through the corridor area? That's just me, but I do feel like there is value in having, fire hall type meetings in communities. That's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rhino.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I do agree with the warden. We're trying to, and some of what Councillor Cole said, we're trying to foster good relationships. A Walton area is far removed from many part of the municipality, the central office here and everything. I really do, in order to be in good faith and to have them feel that they're included in the municipality, I think it would be very prudent to have one in the Walton area. Now, that would probably take in from Walton to Moose Brook or whatever. Then they could have one for Knoll. I'd even go so far as one in the Kennecook, but that could be talked about. But I'd like to at least see the one in the Walton area to give them an opportunity and not to feel more inclusive in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along with what Councillor Garden Cole was saying, I'd like to see more than one in the corridor. And I know, to myself and probably many councillors, Shubenacadie is just up the road a little piece. But unfortunately, there's a feeling there that Elmsdale and Enfield are all that counts. They don't count. So if you want people from Shubenacadie, North Salem and those, Mill Village, they're not coming here. I pretty well guarantee you, they're just not coming here. I'll be the only person, maybe one or so other people from the Shubenacadie, from District 4, that will come to a meeting here. They won't. So it would be nice to see one maybe at the Milford Rec Hall would be a good location, or the Shubenacadie Legion. But you know, for the same reasons, the distance is a little different, I know, for Walton, not the same feeling. It's community engagement. This isn't Shubenacadie's community. That's how they feel. So I really agree that maybe this isn't the proper building to have it in, maybe like one in Enfield somewhere at the Legion there possibly, or something, and then one in Milford, one in Shubenacadie, something like that. But just thinking everybody is close and can easily come here just doesn't cut it with District 4, I don't think. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Deputy Warden Dixon.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess, was the last time we did this, the meeting was held at the Sportsplex, I believe upstairs?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I don't believe through the 2023 plan update there was any in the Sportsplex, but in 2016 there may have been one at the Sportsplex.
I know there was quite a reception at that one.
We were trying to avoid some consultation fatigue because we knew that there was 9, I think, transit meetings happening, and then we were going to include our sustainability and in with us to, so that she doesn't have to go out and have a separate set of meetings, and then possibly even PRC if they had something that they wanted to ask, because it all incorporates into the community plan in the end anyways. But the goal was just not to try to over consult and then not have anybody show up at any of our meetings.
Just my thoughts, sir.
Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I can appreciate what you're saying about not wanting to people to have meeting fatigue, but I feel like a community engagement meeting and a transit meeting, they may bring out the same cross of people. They may bring out people who may just not even care about transit, may not come, but the community engagement may be more up their alley. So I know it's a lot of meetings, but I feel like it's kind of two different things, that maybe two different attractions for residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, might it be an idea to put it out there to the community to invite people to come to a meeting, say in a month around a time, and decide the venue afterwards? You know, if you get a lot of people that you can't do that?
It makes it also difficult for logistics for us booking spots. For example, the Uniac Fire Hall, they have a bunch of activities on different nights, so it just makes it a little bit more difficult if we don't book it ahead of time.
Okay.
Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to go along with Councillor Garden Cole, sometimes if there's more than one presentation happening at a meeting, the details get lost for both meetings. I've been to a few where they've tried to hold two PIMs at one time, and one group was so focused on the first one, they didn't really understand what the second one was going on, and things got really muddy, and people got upset, confusing the two things that were going on and not understanding. So I really think as we plan these community engagements, we really need to make sure that they are very focused. And I don't think covering more than one topic at a time, it's going to, some people are going to show up upset about transit or happy for transit, but other people are going to stand up, show up for the plan review, and they're going to get confused, and people are then going to become, you know, the mob starts to form, and you see it because I think back to the PIM in Mount Uniac when they were talking about rezoning the back portion of a property, industrial park, and then there was another application going on for a condo corporation. So the two of them, people got totally focused and were up in arms about the as-of-right development that had already happened because they didn't understand the difference between the two. The waters got muddied, and it really makes it unfair for staff and the presenters because once things go off the rails, it's very hard to get it back on. So I would really caution that a focused approach with one topic Might be a few more meetings, but I think you'll get a better result and you'll get better data out of it than trying to do too many times in one visit. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to clarify, I know my report mentioned transit possibly going on at the same meeting, but after talking to the Director of Corporate Services, that's been ruled out, so that won't be discussed. I just didn't have a chance to remove it from the presentation.
Sustainable was gonna go on the same time you're doing your plan, it's still gonna be the conflict.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's not really that is going on. She's not doing a presentation. She's just providing us with questions to ask at our tables when we set up our tables. So we talk about sustainability in our planning documents anyways, and we relate to sustainability because we do floodplain planning, we do parks and open space planning when it comes to parks and open space. We have tourism policies and requirements. So we cover a whole gamut of that. We just don't do setbacks and agriculture. So like when we talk about planning documents, we talk about the whole, like a whole
Yeah,
variety of topics.
at the
yeah.
high level, and then
Yeah.
if you have one person that's focused on one section of that, but there's multiple other sections that there'll be questions more in depth, and everything else is up here, and this one you can dive this far into, people are gonna be asking about industrial, they're gonna be asking about this and that, and economic business development, and doing all these other things. And if you're focused on, here's the plan, and if you have any questions about sustainability, you can go here, but all the other questions are just gonna be at the higher level. You can see how that can be a slippery slope.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I guess I'm not as concerned as the councillor, just because we've talked about, and I've used this format before. The way this first round of meetings we envision happening is there'll be a brief staff presentation to start. Then people will be at tables. There'll be a staff person at each table to facilitate the discussion. There'll be maps and information at that table. And really, and we'll have some prompting questions. So, what do you think of this issue? What do you think of that issue? And so on. And then whatever else people bring up, and they'll bring sticky notes to put on the maps and point things out. And it's really, what's working, what's not working for you? What do you want your community to look like 25 years from now? It's that kind of high level discussion at first. And yes, I'm sure some people will bring up industrial this or blasting that and so on. We'll try to facilitate through that. And so the incorporating some, I guess, sustainability issues, I don't think that's a big lift for us. It's a lot of those kind of questions will come up anyway about protecting lakes and, all the floodplains and all the kind of stuff we tend to do in planning anyway.
Yeah, because I just see, like, everybody's gonna look, how does it affect me? What's my property? What's my property? That's what happens I remember the last time in 2016 when this went on. I wasn't on council. I went there as a resident.
Yeah.
And you just saw people barraging staff about, well, how does it affect me? And we're like, well, we're not talking about your individual property. We're talking about the region. If you have a question, they're passing up their number to call back later. And I just want to make sure that that type of thing doesn't happen again, because it seemed to be kind of confusing for some people, and some people didn't understand when they looked at the map that their property had changed in 2016, that the zoning had changed. And so they were then conflicted 2 or 3 years later saying, well, I thought I could do this because I could do it before. Oh no, in 2016 you agreed that this was gonna change and you were at the meeting and you didn't know. So I just wanna make sure that those things don't happen again.
And through you, Mr. Chair, so through the second and third round of consultation, what we found, I think helped a lot in the last plan review was to actually have staff there who had access to the GIS information so that people can come and ask about their property and how this affects them. So, yeah, that's, plan to do that again as well.
I'm fine, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Adam, did you want to weigh in, or are you good?
I'm good, Debbie clarified.
Okay. Counselor Musa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I agree with Councillor Garden Cole that the corridor is 6 districts, and I don't think every one of them is the same. You have Shubenacadie and Milford, they have more farming than probably urban areas, and I think they should have a meeting there, and the other meeting could be anywhere between Enfield and Lens. So, and for the rural areas, same. So I think it's good to involve every part of the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Garden Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So after the community engagement, I'm just thinking about the timeline, then the surveys are compiled?
So, through you, Mr. Chair, we see the surveys going out a little bit before the visioning meetings start, but they'll be advertised at the visioning meetings as well. And probably by the end of May, we'll shut them off. So maybe we'll start them the 1st of April, the surveys, let them go all the way to the end of May. So after, when people are going to the meetings, they can find out information about them. And if they need a hard copy, they can let us know. We can give them hard copies. And then at the end of May, we tally up all the information. We take the notes from our meetings, and then we come back to you, hopefully, this is hopefully, in July with a what we heard report.
Okay. So yes, I would suggest that, I mean, if let's say, for example, there was a meeting in Milford and that could encompass Shubenacadie from one side and Lance from the other side, and then maybe a meeting in Enfield that could encompass both Enfield districts plus the Elmsdale district or Elmsdale thereabouts, that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. There's nobody left, but there is a motion.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm hearing that it sounds like a lot of folks want an extra rural meeting in Walton or some other location, and 1 or 2 additional corridor meetings. So if that's the case, you should really, because the staff proposal doesn't include those meetings, you should do an amendment to include that.
Okay. Warden Rolston.
I move that an additional meeting be held in the Walton area, that an additional meeting be held in the Milford Shubenacadie area. And I'm not sure if I understand if we want an additional meeting in Enfield in addition to the one in this building?
Yes.
Or I would say this building, I don't know,
Not in this
I was
building,
saying not have it at this building. But
Okay.
maybe have maybe 2 extra ones.
Hold the corridor meeting at an Enfield location.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I make that motion.
Second it.
Moved to second. We all understand the motion? Let's go to the vote. And the motion is passed 12-0. Thank you, Debbie. Last item for planning today is the 2026-27 plan review. Discussion items that will not be included. And John, you can begin when you're ready.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last month, council passed a motion directing staff to prepare a brief report to outline topics to be discussed during the plan review with the public in Hants North region. During the 2023 plan update, that meeting was primarily to bring us into provincial requirements to bring planning to that previously unplanned area. So obviously that was the focus, and that is the gray area shown on this map, which, you know, is about half the municipality previously didn't have zoning. And given that this project concluded just 3 years ago, some councillors have expressed reservations about revisiting controversial issues so soon, and really there were 3 of them. The first one had to do with agricultural land protection. There is a statement of provincial interest regarding agricultural lands requiring municipalities to make provisions to protect valuable farmland from development when they prepare plans. As a result, our draft, one of the drafts, as we went through that process, did propose some agricultural zoning along the Knoll Shore, which is the only Class 2 soil in East Hants. However, due to pushback from some landowners, council decided to apply just the RU2 zone to that entire area. So that zone, although it allows agricultural uses, doesn't protect it from other land uses. The second issue dealt with coastal zone management. In our 23 project, council funded a coastal vulnerability study, which gave us some very valuable information, which showed how high the rate of erosion was along the Knoll Shore, and also showed us areas that are subject to coastal flooding. And that study was then used as the basis to develop some regulations to prevent new development in areas subject to erosion and flooding. Those regulations were also left out of the final draft as council received, again, some pushback from residents. And also at the time, the province indicated that they were working on their own regulations to deal with coastal development. In the end, the province decided not to implement their regs and instead are now providing resources to municipalities to develop regulations at the local level. And the final one had to do with rural settlement zoning. Again, in the draft planning documents, there was a specific designation and zone created. Basically, the more built-up areas, Kennecook, Upper Rawdon, Knoll, Walton, and Maitland, to try to prevent land uses which wouldn't be compatible with those more built-up areas, such as salvage yards, lumber mills, intensive livestock, and so on. In the end, though, council decided to just apply the RU2 zone to the entire area, including those communities. And those maps are just examples of what we had prepared last time to show, it was really intended to be the areas immediately around the built-up areas of those communities. So 2 options, I guess. The first one would be to enable discussion of those 3 important issues. And then following our first round of consultation, council would be in a position to provide direction to staff regarding the preparation of any amendments and regulations, or 2, direct staff to not reintroduce those 3 topics, or to include any related regulations in draft planning documents, and restrict our discussion in the Hants North area to basically amendments to the RU2 zone. And staff are recommending that we do talk about those things. I can't bring myself to not recommend. I think they're all good public policy. I get the political impact and how recent it was in terms of the discussion last time, but that's the recommended motion, that we do allow discussion of those things. There is an alternative motion to not reintroduce agricultural land protection, coastal zone management, and settlement zoning within Hants North, or to include any related regulations in draft planning documents, and direct staff to only discuss errors, omissions, and other housekeeping amendments in the RU2 designation and zone at meetings in Hants North. And that's the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Warden Rolston?
Thank you. I'll try to be quick. Settlement zoning, that was dead out of the gate. That got no traction anywhere, and that was one thing in Rawdon, of all places, where there were the least very, I don't know what the word is, vocal. They said they're saving, but that was a big concern. They didn't want it. They didn't like it. They were concerned after it was gone. Agricultural and coastal, the problem being these regulations that we introduced are only 3 years old. People are not really used to the regulation that's there yet. And if we go back and we try to bring things in that were removed the last time, we are going to be seen as bargaining in bad faith. They are going to say, we made our thoughts known on this the last time. A decision was made, and now here you are again. You're just going to keep beating this dead horse and eventually ignore what we have to say. I think we have to give the regulation that's there now a little more time to percolate, a little more time for people to be accustomed to. And I'm not by any means saying these are banned topics if they're raised from the residents. And they may well be raised by some residents. But at this point in time, any effort to go 3 years after just bringing these rules in, which is a big leap for the people in this area, to try and bring things in that were overwhelmingly regarded negatively, is simply going to create an atmosphere of distrust between the public in that area and council. So we'll see where it goes. I'm going to move that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to council that council direct staff to not reintroduce agricultural land protection, coastal zone management, and settlement zoning within Hants North, or to include any related regulations in draft planning documents, and direct staff to only discuss errors, omissions, and housekeeping amendments to the RU2 designation and zone at meetings in Hants North. Now, I will clarify, that's not to say that the public can't raise questions, but we're not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councilor Tingley.
Through the chair, I understand what the warden's saying there, but the motion that was recommended is only to enable an open discussion at the public meetings that's what, I don't know what you're staring at me like that for. That's what it says. You want to say something?
Continued, Counselor?
I think it's just good communication, good planning. Those three items that are listed there, I don't think we should be shoving anything down the residents' throat in Hants North. But I don't see why there can't be an open discussion about it. I think I come on the tail end when all this was happening, when I joined council. And one of the things that surprised me was the coastal protection. There was a climate change action plan guidebook that was put out by the province or the federal government to help the municipalities do climate action or prepare a climate action plan. And, it talks in that guidebook about approximately 80% of Atlantic region's coastline is considered to be highly sensitive to global sea level rise and the issues there. I'm getting to it. Like I think I speak one of the least here. I should at least be given a couple of minutes to say something here. We had this Dr. Tim Webster, a research scientist, come in and explained, what was going along, happening with our coastline. And, staff provided recommendations at that time, and we put it on hold waiting for the province, and now they're putting it back to us, and we're still doing nothing. I'm not saying we should do something, but I don't see why we wouldn't go out and at least have a discussion with the people in Hants North. We're here, but just a moment and we're all gone. Like, the seat might seem a long time, but, we're passing on the agriculture and the coastline and zoning to future generations. And, this is not about politics. This is about trying to do the right thing. I'm not sure what the right thing is, but we should at least be willing to have a discussion with people and hear what they have to say and provide information and come to a decision. That's it.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really respect my colleague's comments, but I do believe that my colleague wasn't there for some meetings that took place. Were you? Okay. And I guess that's an experience that you have to experience. It was pretty blunt. It had people, irate. And the council was taking a beating, and, they were extremely upset, more so than I've ever seen it in my 28 years here on council. Now, I've been telling people that the planning review is subject to a 10-year review all the time. And the first thing I get out of from people is, you're not gonna touch that zoning or coastal or settlement policies again, are you? I said, well, I can't guarantee it, but I'll do my best to keep it out of there, and I will let you know if it changes. It's been only 3 years. And people have this, it's still fresh in the minds of people. And as stated here earlier this afternoon, we are finding out things that have morphed across this and into this RU2 zone that people are just finding out now. And it's very upsetting to them because they thought it went another way. If it's the will of council to go back there and revisit this, I think we're gonna light the flames again. I think the flames will burn a lot higher. It will put an air of distrust with this municipality, fractured between the urban and rural areas even more. I really don't think that we should be revisiting this. Let this sink in. Let people get used to whatever rules that come along with this RU2 zone and let them get used to it. I'm not saying midterm or we may not go in and we change things, but let the people get used to it or somewhat used to it, and then we're staying constant. Now, if this is some of the things, if there's questions that are brought up through these meetings, oh yes, by all means, adding them. But I don't want to go in with the thought or make them have the thought that we are going to change zoning again, and we are going to change this again, and we are going to change that again. And I don't want to go in with that. If they want to bring up to discuss some things, I don't have a problem with that. I do believe that they should be, every chance should be made aware of, and I referred to it as omnibus stuff that was buried. I think they should be made aware of some of those underlying rules that they didn't know went in there. I don't have a problem with that. But if we go in saying, okay, zoning is back on the table again, and the other two subjects are back on the table again, I think it'll just fracture what we've done in the past by just going with the RU2 zoning. And I really feel strongly, please don't go back there again. Let's do the planning review. Let's hear what they say. From that, we may be able to change something down the road. But let's let them get used to it, or whatever. I mean, used to it is not a correct term anyway. But anyway, to understand it, I guess, or try to understand it as best we can. I don't want to go through that again. I will if I'm forced to, but you had to be there to experience it. And that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was there and I experienced it all. And it wasn't nice, but there also was a group that traveled to every meeting and made other people afraid to speak in the contrary. And everybody who attended those meetings can definitely attest to that. I'll also say, when it comes to coastal zone management, the province has kicked it down to us, but they haven't given us a timeline yet. If the province comes out next week and says everybody along the coast needs to have a plan in by this date, right? I think the people in the area should know the state of who controls the coastal erosion zone. That right now, the province has kicked it to us. We haven't been mandated to do anything, and we're not doing anything. That is the fair and transparent way to put that out there for the people. And that's the conversation for coastal zone management that I would put out if I was going to do that. And the other thing with the agricultural land protection, like, I feel for the farmers in Shubenacadie and in all the other places, you know, that if you're receiving the agricultural tax credit, your property should be agricultural. And that's not happening in the rural north, in the RU2 zone. So now you have two classes of farmers in our municipality. And that was something that was brought up at that time, that it was not fair and it was not right. And we settled on this, and it's still that way. So I really think that, you know, there has to be something that goes along with that. If you're going to reap the benefits, then you have to be classified a certain way. It's just not fair for the other farmers who are out there doing the same thing, and their land is classified one thing and other people's aren't. And that's all I have to say about that. But for the settlement zoning, I agree, that's a dead horse unless that comes forward. But I do believe for the coastal zone management, it has to be part of the presentation because they have to know where that stands. So if the province mandates something to us in a year, 6 months, 3 weeks, or in the fall, they know where it's coming from, that it's not us driving this, that it's been put in our lap, and if it has to come out, we don't want to do it, but we have to do what the province tells us to do. And that would be my reason, and that's my reason why I won't support the motion, because I think the coastal zone management piece really does need to be in there, and there should be some conversation about agricultural land protection, as we just went through with this gentleman here who has his lands classified as poor, and it's being kept in agricultural reserve, and there's plenty of land that is way more fertile that is not in an agricultural reserve. That to me is also an issue, because you have two classes now of farmers. and a farmer should be a farmer, should be a farmer, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Musa?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that we should go there and discuss every topic. That doesn't mean we're gonna do something to hurt people. We're gonna try this planning review. I see it as a way to improve everything we have. Every zone we have is to improve on it. So I think when that's how I understand when the planning go into a meeting, they're gonna ask people, okay, we zoned your property RU2 zone. What you like about it, what you don't like about it, and after all, we're not here to hurt people. Like I was here through all the processes. Some of them went bad, but at the end, the people won. They got the best zoning they could have. The RU2 zone is the best zone in the municipality, and I don't think this council is gonna change it. It's gonna improve on it, maybe, but it's not gonna take anything away from it. So that's the way I see it, and I think we should go to all the part of the municipality with what you like to see in your area, and from there can all come to council and we make the right decision for everybody. So that's how I see it. I don't think it's a bad idea to discuss those topics. Some people might not like something about their RU2 zone and then bring it forward, and if we find it reasonable, we change it. But I don't think people are gonna ask for something that's bad for their area, and we're not gonna do something against the people. That's why we do those meetings. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, John, I don't know.
It's entirely a decision of the council.
Yeah, but that's the plan, like to improve the zoning instead of restricting, right?
Yes. Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, the RU2 zone, yes, I'm sure there will be some issues that come up and we will amend it. But the question would be, are we going to consider rezoning some of that RU2 land to some other zones?
That's gonna come anyway in the omission and discussion and housekeeping, right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the amending the RU2 zone, yes, but not to rezone some of that land to AR or to the coastal overlay zone that we had created before, or settlement zone.
No,
That's
but
an entirely different thing.
Yeah, but there's some areas that agricultural reserve that it's gonna be changed to a better zone, right? That's. No, I mean, there's some areas that agricultural reserve, and we're getting people that they don't farm their land and they wanna change it to RU2, right? So that's gonna be part of the discussion, right?
Not really, through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, we are going to prepare a report on agricultural land protection as far as it's gone, which is in that, again, only in that green area do you find any agricultural zoning. And we will bring a report about how that's working, size of parcels, and whether, we should have a different approach. So there will be a policy discussion about that. That's what we're planning. But again, if the motion on the floor is passed, we won't talk about that at all in terms of expanding it into the gray area.
Okay.
Is that all, Counselor? Counselor Tingley?
Through the chair, I just wanted to reiterate that the recommendation that staff had was to enable an open discussion at a public meetings in Hants North. It wasn't to go and shove something down their throat or make any changes. And these are all very important topics, and for the same reasons, or I'm sure John has got more reasons, but for similar reasons as John, I think the discussion should at least occur. For that reason, I can't support this motion.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rhino?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Speaking again. Well, Counselor Perry's comments, I guess we're gonna disagree. We can probably agree on, the settlement zoning. The erosion, I can hear what he's saying. I think we shouldn't just, I don't want to go in with the intent that we're going to change this and here's the laws. If we can say, look, with regard to this, if the province has said, if they give us an order to change this, we have to follow it. So I can go along with them there, but where you go and with the intent of going in, and these people got the intent that their RU2 zoning is on the line again, and they're gonna enter into different zonings, it's the intent. That's what people will see with this. People will see, yeah, well, we decided what we wanted before we made her, and council agreed with us, and now we're going in with the intent of possibly changing the RU2 zone and putting in agricultural requirements and zones in there. No, that will upset the apple cart again. But again, you just had to be there, and I know a lot of these councilors were, but and it's fine. I know everybody has these stands at heart, but we're, the warden and myself are the ones that are hearing this right front and center. And it's my duty to pass it on and pass on the way they feel.
Thank you, Counselor. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Yeah, and to echo Councillor Rhino, anyone who was not involved in all that process has no idea. It was painful, and people were angry, and that anger has not completely subsided, but I think things are starting to get better. And I really don't want to destroy the trust that the people have in the municipality. We've established zoning. It's only been there for 3 years. Reviews are every 10 years. Why would we review our zoning 7 years before anybody else's was reviewed? And there are all kinds of things that one could argue. But just through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, can you honestly tell me that introducing those 3 topics in public meetings in the rural area would enable good public discussion? That's not what I call it. It would enable angry discussion. It would enable disillusionment with council. That's what it would enable. And I just don't think it's the time. I'm not saying, and I've told people, don't think that these things won't come back again. But it's not, we're not bringing it back every year after year after year, but at some point in the future, these things will come back. I just don't think 3 years is a fair time to bring it back to people. And I don't believe it will be any better received than it was the first time. I'm going to just go a little further of something I have noticed this councillor term. And in my 28 plus years here, there's always been a lot of respect and a lot of listening among councillors to the councillors of particular areas when it comes to things that affect their areas. And that's changed. That's changing. I see less of that now. And it's fine. I don't, everyone's entitled to their opinion, and if they have a strong opinion about something in another area, they certainly should, express it. But I do think that there are times that the folks that the people elected to represent them on this council do have an idea what the folks that sent them here want. And we do have an idea what will work and what won't work. And I'm just going to add my voice to Councillor Rhino's and say, please don't do this now. This is not the time. This is not going to make anything any better. This would not be good, and it would just stir up an awful lot of hard feelings and anger. And if there are people out there who wish to raise it and bring it up, staff will answer their questions. I just don't want to be seen as going out there and trying to reintroduce something that was just decided 3 years ago. And I don't think that's fair to the people either. And so those are my comments, and I'm not saying these discussions may never happen, but I don't think 3 years after the introduction of zoning is the time for them to happen. And I do humbly request that council understand where Councilor Rhino and myself are coming from. I mean, the last time we had 3 councilors in that area, but it was still very unanimous, and we were all very much aware of what our public felt and how they felt, and I wouldn't be doing them service if I didn't support the motion that I made. But also, like Councillor Rhino and Councillor Perry, I don't have a problem with going in and saying that the province did not introduce their coastal regulation. If they tell us we have to do it, we'll have no choice. That's a little different than going in and saying, we should revisit doing this. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor McPhee?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, before I can vote on the alternative motion, I'd like to clarify what staff was thinking when they included enable an open discussion. How are you going to do that? Maybe that's would
Sure.
clarify some of this.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I would imagine, again, in phase one, where we're sort of having that broader discussion, we would talk about the fact that, you know, the best farmland in East Hants is on the Knoll Shore. Do you think that should be protected? It would be an open discussion like that, as opposed to, you know, we're going to apply the AR zone in this area. It was, again, that visioning piece first. And if people throw it back and say, no, we don't, no one up here thinks we need to protect this land, then, you know, that's what we'll bring back to council.
Mhm. And I take it that'd be the same with the coastal zone.
Yeah, it's similar with the other 2 issues, yeah. that we would-
And with the coastal zone management, I know this deals with Hants North, but on a meeting, that was a Zoom meeting with the province, I think I was the only person from this council that was on it. They stressed that coastal zone management also included the Shubenacadie River right up through to District 4 to Shubenacadie. So we mustn't forget that that is part of that. It's not just the Knoll Shore and that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for the clarification on what you were thinking about the enabling open discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Warden Dixon?
Thank you, through the chair. I'm gonna support this motion because I believe there's enough people sitting out there in the land listening to what's going on, and these topics are gonna come up whether we like it or not, and that's basically my comments on this, so I think we're gonna hear a lot. I plan on being there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Councillor Garden Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was there and I went to all the meetings, and I was a relatively newer counselor coming from a district that was very different from where this was all happening. So I had to really apply myself to get an understanding of what this meant to the residents there. And by going to those meetings, that was my education on what it meant to them. I can't imagine, although I'm not a counselor from that area, I can't imagine opening up these wounds when I feel, are still healing in that area. I think it is premature. And as it says, if people want to bring this topic up, that is their prerogative. But to go in there with an agenda to bring these topics up to them, I could not support that. Having gone there and witnessed it, I could not support that for those residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miriam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I guess to weigh in, I'm inclined to follow the lead of the local councillors in their areas, just with their knowledge of their situations. But with that said, I do hear both sides of the argument. I'm also, just in the conversation, I was thinking about, as an example, with coastal zone management. And it just got me thinking about possible, through planning And through partnership with groups like the Government of Canada and the FCM, looking at climate adaptation projects and partner grants. And it got me thinking about, because I'm originally from the Annapolis Valley, and I do remember that Annapolis Royal, it just says here, restoring a shoreline due to a coastal storm surge in Annapolis Royal, $880,000 of funding approved, and that's through FCM in partnership with the Government of Canada. So, I guess I'm just thinking out loud, is it possible that by not engaging in the discussion and further planning, that there could be some opportunities that we're missing out on? But I digress. Again, I'll finish where I started. I'm inclined to follow the lead of the local councillors.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Musa?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of inclined to follow my councillors of the area, and I have one question. If we're not gonna revisit those ones, so for error, omission, and housekeeping, do we need a public hearing for a public meeting for them, or do in-house here?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think you would still want to go to those communities to talk about their experience with planning the last 3 years and to hear the good and the bad and what should be changed and what is fine.
Okay, so we need those meetings, okay, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Warden Rolston?
Yes, and I just want to say, I hear Councillor McPhee on the coastal thing around the Shuby River. This is for bringing forward for discussion in those areas with the RU2 zone. There's absolutely no reason that Shubenacadie area couldn't discuss their interest in that. This is just in relation to the RU2 zone. Give us some more time, as Councillor Garden Cole said, to heal from the first round before we start round two. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification for the mover, so I know which way to vote, because in the motion it says, do not talk about coastal zone whatsoever. But you made a comment earlier that you'd be okay with letting the people of the area know the province has put the problem down to us, but that contradicts about what's in the motion. So would there be an amendment coming to allow the conversation of what's happening? We don't intend to do anything right now with coastal zone management, but if we are forced to, we will have to, so the people don't get blindsided by it.
I could add the words after coastal zone management to say, except to explain that the province has not implemented rules, and should we be instructed by the province to do so, we would have no choice at that time.
Thank you.
Everybody? Councillor Musa?
Just a small question. So John, every 10 years you have to do plan review. So the next one, it's gonna be 10 years for the rural, or we're gonna be together? Like, it's gonna be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this would combine them now, so then everyone would be on the same schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Everybody's okay with the addition from the warden to the motion? Seeing no complaints, I will go to the vote. And the motion is passed with a vote 11-1, with Councillor Tingley voting nay. We're going to go to I&O.
Okay, so we're not doing the impact?
Okay, I'll adjourn the Planning Advisory Committee and we'll go to I&O with Mike Perry as chair. What, did I say something wrong? No, you're good.
Good. I'm not even gonna bring my computer up.
Oh, don't say that.
I thought I might get in trouble.
All right, I'll call to order the Infrastructure and Operations Committee. Looking, anybody have any issues with the minutes from January 20th, 2026? Seeing none, minutes approved. Only speaker we have today is the Director of I&O. We're going to talk about the Shubenacadie Wastewater Treatment Plant, GUDI monitoring budget. Go ahead, Jesse.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair. In November, staff presented a report requesting $25,000 for a step 2 GUDI study for the latest well installation in Shubenacadie. We've gone to market. Bids came back, and the low bid came in above anticipated budget. And staff are seeking an additional $10,000 to get that budget up to $35,000 to award this contract. And move forward with the study, and to be funded with half, which was the Housing Accelerator Fund, which was the source of funding previously. And I'd open it up for questions.
Is there any questions on this? Councilor Garden Cole.
Thank you. Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I move that the Infrastructure and Operations Committee recommend that council approve an additional $10,000 for the completion of the GUDI study, step 2 of the new well at the Shubenacadie Water Treatment Plant to be funded from the Housing Accelerator Fund.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote.
Shirley, how do I get back on?
Yeah. We had to re-sign in, so we'll do the vote again as we change committees. The vote is now ready. And the motion has passed unanimously.
All I can say is goody, goody, goody.
Now, that brings me to, contrary to the schedule, this will not be an adjournment and lunch break. It'll just be adjournment to reconvene in council policy.
I gotta go back up there? I'm not taking my computer.
Oh. So you're gonna miss out on the,
What?